that picture frozen? I don't get it. Can you not work? Oh, come on, man. Why is the picture frozen? Oh, shit. What is it showing? Ugh. It's not even working. What the fuck? Ugh. Why does that say video capture device? And then the mic's working. Okay, yes, USB camera. Why did that not show up before? Is that streaming now? I hope I look as shitty as I feel. Oh. If you've never got a migraine, I count that as a blessing. But on top of that, if you've never got a sinus migraine, I don't even know that that's the right term. Migraine's like, it's like a cluster headache in your head. It's like there's a storm inside your brain, with the lightning, and a sinus one, like what I'm calling a sinus migraine, the front of my face is like throbbing, and it's getting that migraine. You get that migraine thing where your vision starts to tunnel. So like it's like there's black coming in on the side of you, but you also get this fucking teary thing. So it's like you're already having trouble like focusing or seeing, but then your eyes keep tearing up, so it makes it even worse. Yeah, I've had this. I don't know. I was just feeling really fatigued yesterday, and then I ate some crappy food, and then I felt sick in the stomach after that. I was like, oh, what's wrong with me today? And then it somehow evolved into a migraine that I've had. So I slept, I don't know, a ton of time. When I wasn't asleep, I was just sort of like, had Community on in the background because it seems to soothe my brain. But I wasn't really watching it because I couldn't really see, so that's fun. Anyway, it fucks up my voice as well. I don't know how to. Oh, well, you'd think I would have mentioned this to the doctor, but this was one of the 5 other things I didn't mention. The thing is, because I'm so neurotic, I recently saw one of the Dr. Mike videos where he's like, you shouldn't be having more than 600 milligrams of ibuprofen a week. That was more for lifters. I'm like, oh, I have more than 600 milligrams of ibuprofen a day when I get these fucking headaches. So I sort of just try and suffer through it now, which doesn't work. It's just like, yeah, it's not good to take too much ibuprofen. I'll just sort of lie here, not be able to do anything. That's a good idea. Anyway, the point, I was trying not to talk at all in this stream. The point I'm trying to get to is, I wasted all of yesterday when I had lots of time to get stuff done because I felt so crappy. And then I've just gotten up at like 4 in the morning and gone, oh shit, yeah, I've got about 8 hours to get stuff done. So just trying to struggle through, and I clean up the kitchen first. If you're ever like a massive slob like me, never. But yeah, if you do have the house to yourself, and you try and, pull all your junk out and rearrange it because there's not normal people there to bother you. The one small thing I've learned from doing it too many times is get the fucking kitchen fixed first. Because I'm just going to try my best to like get all this stuff into my room, because then it's my problem again. At the moment, it's everywhere, bro. It's in the hallway, in the bathroom, some of it out in the kitchen. No, not the kitchen, like the eating room next to the kitchen, whatever you call that. But once I move all this stuff, I won't feel like doing the kitchen. So, I did all the dishes, wiped everything down. That's all good. So, if this is all you've watched, I hope I can give you that little bit of. If you've got the house to yourself in general and you max right a bit, get the kitchen done. That's what they freak out about the most. Once all this shit's back in my room, they won't give a shit. But kitchen and then bathroom usually. But bathroom you've got a little bit of leeway with, especially if you haven't made a huge mess, which I haven't. Fuck. Alright. I'm going to put on a documentary called Remix, which is about a guy called Girl Talk. It's on YouTube. I think it's in that playlist thing of Cloudface's weird movies. I just, again... I don't feel like talking. This is supposed to be for a time lapse anyway. Oh, that hurt the back of my skull. And I think it'd be funny if I got a copyright strike for this movie that's about a guy that used other people's music, you know. So, oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know if this will be an entertaining stream or anything, but thanks for watching if you did. Oh my goodness. The good thing is I'm too fucked up to bother with the camera today. I should probably check on the audio. Where's the phone? Oh my goodness. I gotta go and pick up my car, man. He tried to ring me yesterday and I was like, I can't see my phone properly. But I sort of like barely like, oh, it's the mechanic. Oh fuck, I can't go down and pick it up now. I can't even talk. And then the guy was nice enough to text me and say, oh, your car's ready to pick up. It's like, oh, now I feel guilty. But it's hard to explain to normal people that don't. To pick up and go, yeah, hello. Yes, no, I can't see properly at the moment. And it's just like small monkeys are in my head bashing the sides with fucking mallets. So I don't think it's safe for me to drive. And plus, I don't know how to get there right now because I can't think. So sorry. I'll come and get it when my brain works again. Holy shit, my eyes are fucked. Alright, so again, this is me selfishly using streaming. A lot of people sort of say, oh, I'm streaming to be entertaining. Sorry, I'm streaming to make myself do this because I just want to sort of like roll up in a ball. I finished streaming all of Community though. I think I went from season 3 to season 6, passing out here and there. When did Annie change from wanting to be a hospital administration or whatever to working for the FBI? I missed that bit. And there was a bunch of continuity errors that... Like, I'm watching this for comfort, and the little bit of my brain that's working is going, oh, nope, see that? That doesn't make sense. Why did they do that? I was like, shut up. Let's see if this is even... What? Is it not even streaming? It is streaming. Watching this for comfort, and a little bit of my brain that's me. Is going, oh, see that? That doesn't make sense. I'll sub for sub. Spam sub in the chat and I'll sub to you. I saw some creep doing that yesterday. He was like asking, like, if you keep spamming sub in the chat, I'll sub randomly to people, and then if you give me a donation, I'll auto sub. And I'm like trying to tell these kids, and my like again, I was scrolling just to distract myself, but my brain's like still going, you kids are paying him for one sub. Like he was going, oh, you donated 99 cents. Here, I'll click on your profile. And there was some kid that had like 7 subscribers. I'm like, kid, it's not worth $1. You're not going to blow up. None of the people here trying to get their own subs are going to look up the weird name with like a string of numbers of your channel and then subscribe to you just because this guy did. That you've paid $1 to. And you don't understand. You're spamming sub, which the algorithm goes, oh, there's lots of active chat. We'll push this stream forward. But you're not saying anything. Apart from, I subbed. It's like, alright, I'm randomly picking someone that said subbed. And I started trying to go scammed. had some plunger coffee before to help me get going. And then I realised all the plunger had not strained it. French press. I think the Americans call it French press. So I was getting all the grit, like that coffee. I think it's fucked up my reflux, so this is a good stream. Okay. Wow. Why would you embarrass yourself like this? Ugh. I don't care. This is the only way we can get it done. Oh! Oh my fucking... Alright, put on some background noise. Oh, fuck. Oh my goodness. You know it's bad when I can't even bother swearing. Oh my goodness. Golly gee, white people curse words. Good golly good. Oh fuck. Okay, I can't think of what it's called again, so I'm gonna do what I said and click on my profile. Playlists. What was it? Weird movies. Cloudface's random movie list. Oh. I don't want to watch Shrek. Remix. Everything is a remix, okay? See, there's some weird Jim Carrey movie called Rubberface. They Live, full movie. I don't know the copyright thing of this, but it's on YouTube. Star Trek Acid Party is really good. You should watch that some other time. And everything is a remix. Okay, let's play that.
This is the Google Pixel profile, and this is the Sonic ad you're watching. The meeting you're in.
Next time I find some weird movies, I'll add them to it, huh?
Watching the game. Great work, team.
Pretty ironic how the original video got taken down because of copyright. Oh, there we go. This was uploaded 8 years ago by Kirby Ferguson, whoever he is.
Something new. The term remix originally applied to music. It rose to prominence late last century during the heyday of hip-hop, the first popular music form to incorporate sampling from existing recordings.
Ugh.
Early example. Sugar Hill Gang samples the bass riff from Chic's Good Times in the 1979 hit Rapper's Delight.
Now what you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat. And me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet.
Since then, that same bass line has been sampled dozens of times. Skip ahead to the present and anybody can remix anything. Music, video, photos, whatever, and distribute it globally pretty much instantly. You don't need expensive tools, you don't need a distributor, you don't even need skills. Remixing is a folk art. Anybody can do it. Yet these techniques, copying materials, transforming them, combining them, are the same ones used at any level of creation. You might even say, everything is a remix. To explain, let's start in England in 1968. Jimmy Page recruits John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and John Bonham to form Led Zeppelin. They play extremely loud blues music that will soon be known as, wait. Let's start in Paris in 1961. William Burroughs coins the term heavy metal in the novel The Soft Machine, a book composed using the cut-up technique, taking existing writing and literally chopping it up and rearranging it. So in 1961, William Burroughs not only invents the term heavy metal, the brand of music Zeppelin and a few other groups have pioneered, he also produces an early remix. Back to Zeppelin. By By the mid-1970s, Led Zeppelin are the biggest touring rock band in America, yet many critics and peers labeled them as rip-offs. The case goes like this. The opening and closing sections of Bringin' On Home are lifted from a tune by Willie Dixon entitled, not coincidentally, Bringin' On Home.
Got my ticket, got that load. I done bought my ticket. I got my load.
The Lemon Song lifts numerous lyrics from Howlin' Wolf's Killin' Floor.
I should have quit you a long time ago.
Black Mountainside lifts its melody from Black Waterside, a traditional arranged by Bert Jansch. Dazed and Confused features different lyrics but is clearly an uncredited cover of the same titled song by Jake Holmes. Holmes filed suit over 40 years later in 2010.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. I'm dazed and confused, hanging on by a thread.
And the big one, Stairway to Heaven, pulls its opening from Spirit's Taurus. The estate of songwriter Randy California filed suit in 2014. Zeppelin clearly copied a lot of other people's material. But that alone isn't unusual. Only two things distinguish Zeppelin from their peers. Firstly, when Zeppelin used someone else's material, they didn't attribute songwriting to the original artist. Most British blues groups were reporting lots of covers, but unlike Zeppelin, they didn't claim to have written them. Secondly, Zeppelin didn't modify their versions enough to claim they were original. Many bands knock off acts that came before them, but they tend to emulate the general sound rather than specific lyrics or melodies. Zeppelin copied without making fundamental changes. So these two things, covers, performances of other people's material, and knockoffs, copies that stay within legal boundaries, these are long-standing examples of legal remixing. This stuff accounts for almost everything the entertainment industry produces. And that's where we're headed in part 2.
We're making healthcare more accessible for our members.
I'm gonna just get some
Digital
shit
health
done.
services through Ela. Healthcare that works around you. That's healthcaring beyond the games.
Fucking ads. Fuck off. Oh, god damn it. I've never seen this before, so I didn't know there was ads. There wasn't ads in the Zeitgeist one.
thing. In the wake of their enormous success, Led Zeppelin went from the copier to the copied. First in the 70s with groups like Aerosmith and Heart in Boston, then during the 80s heavy metal craze, and on into the era of sampling. Here's the beats from When the Levee Breaks, getting sampled and remixed.
What is this? Let me just double check. It's definitely streaming, right? Because my brain's not working. Fuck. Yep, there's my stupid dumb face. Alright. Holy fuck. Oh, my brain hurts.
This is the Google Pixel 9 Pro.
This is not what I thought it was. I thought this was...
The photo you just took.
I thought there was a documentary on girl talk, but it's not.
So now you finally have a picture from the family holiday with the whole family.
We put a lot of care in making sure junk ends up in the right place.
1-800-GOTJUNK.com.au.
Perhaps it's because movies are so massively
Oh, there's a
expensive
new
to
update.
make. Perhaps it's
2023.
because
Should we play
graphic
that
novels,
instead?
TV shows, video games, books, and the like are such rich sources of material. Or perhaps it's because audiences just prefer the familiar. Whatever the reason, most box office hits rely heavily on existing material. Of the 10 highest grossing films per year from the last 10 years, 74 out of 100 are either sequels or remakes of earlier films or adaptations of comic books, video games, books, and so on. Transforming the old into the new is Hollywood's greatest talent. At this point, we've got 3 sequels to a film adapted from a theme park attraction. We've got a movie musical based on a musical which was based on a movie. We've got 2 sequels to a film that was adapted from an animated TV show based on a line of toys. We've got a movie based on 2 books, one of which was based on a blog, which was inspired by the other book that was adapted into the film. Julie and Julia. Do you follow? We've got 11 Star Trek films, 12 Friday the 13th, and 23 James Bonds. We've got stories that have been told, retold, transformed, referenced, and subverted since the dawn of cinema. We've seen vampires morph from hideous monsters to caped bedroom invaders to campy jokes to sexy hunks to sexier hunks. Of the few box office hits that aren't sequels, remakes, or adaptations, the word original wouldn't spring to mind to describe them. These are genre movies, and they stick to pretty standard templates. Genres then break up into subgenres with their own, even more specific conventions. So in the category of horror films, we have subgenres like supernatural, slasher, zombie, and creature feature. All have standard elements that are appropriated, transformed, and subverted. Let's use the biggest film of the decade as an example. Now, it's not a sequel, remake, or adaptation, but it is a genre film, sci-fi, and most tellingly, it's a member of a tiny subgenre where sympathetic white people feel bad about all the murder, pillaging, and annihilation being done on their behalf. I call this subgenre Sorry About Colonialism. I'm talking about movies like Dances with Wolves, The Last Samurai, The Last of the Mohicans, Dune, Lawrence of Arabia, A Man Called Horse, and even Fern Gully and Pocahontas. Films are built on other films as well as on books, TV shows, actual events, plays, whatever. This applies to everything from the lowliest genre film right on up to revered indie fare. And it even applies to massively influential blockbusters, the kinds of films that reshape pop culture. Which brings us to... Even now, Star Wars endures as a work of impressive imagination, and many of its individual components are as recognizable as the samples in a remix. The foundation for Star Wars comes from Joseph Campbell. He popularized the structures of myth in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Star Wars follows the outline of the monomyth, which consists of stages like the Call to Adventure, Supernatural Aid, Belly of the Whale, the Road of Trials, the Meeting with the Goddess, and a bunch more. Also huge influences were the Flash Gordon serials from the 30s and Japanese director Akira Kurosawa. Star Wars plays much like an updated version of Flash Gordon, right down to the soft wipes and the opening titles design. From Kurosawa, we get Masters of Spiritual Martial Arts, a low-ranking bickering duo, more soft wipes, a beneath the floorboards hideaway, and a boastful baddie getting his arm chopped off.
I should have it up here, but I can't.
Just watch yourself. We want it in. I have the death sentence on 12 system.
War films and westerns were also huge sources for Star Wars. The scene where Luke discovers his slaughtered family resembles this scene from The Searchers.
And the cords across there. What's that? What's the point of this, man?
And the scene where Han Solo shoots Greedo resembles this scene from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The climactic airstrikes in the Dam Busters, 633 Squadron, and the bridges at Toko Ri play very similarly to the run in the Death Star. And in many cases, existing shots were even used as templates for Star Wars special effects. There's also many other elements clearly derived from various films. We have a Tin Man, like the Tin Woman in Metropolis, a couple shots inspired by 2001, a grab the girl and swing scene like this one in The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, a holographic projection kind of like the one in Forbidden Planet, a rally resembling this one in Triumph of the Will, and cute little robots much like those in Silent Running. George Lucas copied materials, he combined them, he transformed them. Without the films that preceded it, there could be no Star Wars. Creation requires influence. Everything we make is a remix of existing creations, our lives, and the lives of others. As Isaac Newton once said, we stand on the shoulders of giants, which is what he was doing when he adapted that saying from Bernard de Chartres. In part 3, we'll further explore this idea and chart the blurry boundary between the original and the unoriginal.
Oh, come on, man.
Between the original and the unoriginal.
It's only 37 minutes.
George Lucas was the most movie-saturated filmmaker of his era, but that baton has since been passed to
2019.
Quentin Tarantino's remix master thesis is Kill Bill, which is probably the closest thing Hollywood has to a mashup. This is filmic sampling to new heights of sophistication. The killer nurse scene in particular is almost entirely a recombination of elements from existing films. The basic action is the same as this scene from Black Sunday, where a woman disguised as a nurse attempts to murder a patient with a syringe of red fluid. Daryl Hannah's eye patch is a nod to the lead character in They Call Her One Eye, and the tune she's whistling is taken from the 1968 thriller Twisted Nerve.
Hold tight. Hold tight.
Capping it off, the split screen effect is modeled on techniques used by Brian De Palma in an assortment of films, including Carrie. The act of creation is surrounded by a fog of myths. Myths that creativity comes via inspiration, that original creations break the mold, that they're the products of geniuses, and appear as quickly as electricity can heat a filament. But creativity isn't magic. It happens by applying ordinary tools of thought to existing materials. and the soil from which we grow our creations is something we scorn and misunderstand, even though it gives us so much, and that's copying. Put simply, copying is how we learn. We can't introduce anything new until we're fluent in the language of our domain, and we do that through emulation. For instance, all artists spend their formative years producing derivative work. Bob Dylan's first album contained 11 cover songs. Richard Pryor began his stand-up career doing a not very good imitation of Bill Cosby. And Hunter S. Thompson retyped The Great Gatsby just to get the feel of writing a great novel. Nobody starts out original. We need copying to build a foundation of knowledge and understanding. And after that, things can get interesting.
Oh, fuck's sake, stop playing with the camera!
After we've grounded ourselves in the fundamentals through copying, it's then possible to create something new through transformation, taking an idea and creating variations. This is time-consuming tinkering, but it can eventually produce a breakthrough. James Watt created a major improvement to the steam engine because he was assigned to repair a Thomas Newcomen steam engine. He then spent 12 years developing his version. Christopher Latham Scholl's modeled his typewriter keyboard on a piano. His design slowly evolved over 5 years into the QWERTY layout we still use today. And Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. His first patent was improvement in electric lamps, but he did produce the first commercially viable one after trying 6,000 different materials for the filament. These are all major advances, but they're not original ideas so much as tipping points in a continuous line of invention by many different people. But the most dramatic results can happen when ideas are combined. By connecting ideas together, creative leaps can be made, producing some of history's biggest breakthroughs. Johann Gutenberg's printing press was invented around 1440, but almost all its components had been around for centuries. Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Company didn't invent the assembly line, interchangeable parts, or even the automobile itself, but they combined all these elements in 1908 to produce the first mass-market car, the Model T. And the internet slowly grew over several decades as networks and protocols merged. It finally hit critical mass in 1991 when Tim Berners-Lee added the World Wide Web. These are the basic elements of creativity: copy, transform, and combine. And the perfect illustration of all these at work is the story of the devices we're using right now. So let's travel back to the dawn of the personal computer revolution and look at the company that started it all. Xerox. Xerox invented the modern personal computer in the early 70s. The Alto was a mouse-driven system with a graphical user interface. Bear in mind that a popular personal computer of this era was operated with switches, and if you flipped them in the right order, you got to see blinking lights. The Alto was way ahead of its time. Eventually, Apple got a load of the Alto and later released not one, but 2 computers with graphical interfaces, the Lisa and its more successful follow-up, the Macintosh. The Alto was never a commercial product, but Xerox did release a system based on it in 1981, the Star 8010. 2 years before the Lisa, 3 years before the Mac. It was the Star and the Alto that served as the foundation for the Macintosh. The Xerox Star used a desktop metaphor with icons for documents and folders. It had a pointer, scroll bars, and pop-up menus. These were huge innovations, and the Mac copied every one of them. But it was the first combination it incorporated that set the Mac on a path towards long-term success. Apple aimed to merge the computer with the household appliance. The Mac was to be a simple device, like a TV or a stereo. This was unlike the Star, which was intended for professional use and vastly different from the cumbersome command-based systems that dominated the era. The Mac was for the home, and this produced a cascade of transformations. Firstly, Apple removed one of the buttons on the mouse to make its novel pointing device less confusing. Then they added the double click for opening files. The Star used a separate key to open files. The Mac also let you drag icons around and move and resize windows. The Star didn't have drag and drop. You moved and copied files by selecting an icon, pressing a key, then clicking the location. And you resized windows with a menu. The Star and the Alto both featured pop-up menus, but because the location of these would move around the screen, the user had to continually reorient. The Mac introduced the menu bar, which stayed in the same place no matter what you were doing. And the Mac added the trash can to make deleting files more intuitive and less nerve-wracking. And lastly, through compromise and clever engineering, Apple managed to pare the Mac's price down to $2,500. Still pretty expensive, but much cheaper than the $10,000 Lisa or the $17,000 Star. But what started it all was the graphical interface merged with the idea of the computer as household appliance. The Mac is a demonstration of the explosive potential of combinations. The Star and the Alto, on the other hand, are the products of years of elite research and development. They're a testament to the slow power of transformation. But of course, they too contain the work of others. The Alto and the Star are evolutionary branches that lead back to the NLS system, which introduced Windows and the mouse, to Sketchpad, the first interactive drawing application, and even back to the Memex, a concept resembling the modern PC, decades before it was possible. The interdependence of our creativity has been obscured by powerful cultural ideas, but technology is now exposing this connectedness. We're struggling legally, ethically, and artistically to deal with these implications, and that's our final episode, Part 4.
This is the Google Pixel 9 Pro. These are some restaurants Dan just suggested for this weekend. And this is you asking Gemini to put these places on a map. That's convenient.
Got shit on it. Shut up, ads.
It's our final episode, Part 4. What if Xerox never decided to pursue the graphical interface? Or Thomas Edison found a different trade? What if Tim Berners-Lee never got the funding to develop the World Wide Web? Would our world be different? Would we be further behind? History seems to tell us things wouldn't be so different. Whenever there's a major breakthrough, there's usually others on the same path. Maybe a bit behind, maybe not behind at all. Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz both invented calculus around 1684. Charles Darwin proposed the theory of evolution by natural selection, but Alfred Russel Wallace had pretty much the same idea at pretty much the same time. And Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray filed patents for the telephone on the same day. We call this multiple discovery, the same innovation emerging from different places. Science and invention is riddled with it, but it can also happen in the arts. In film, for instance, we had 3 Coco Chanel movies released within 9 months of each other. Around 1999, we had a quartet of sci-fi movies about artificial reality. Even Charlie Kaufman's unusually original film, Synecdoche, New York, bears an uncanny resemblance to Tom McCarthy's novel, Remainder. Both are the stories of men who suddenly become wealthy and start recreating moments of their lives, even going so far as to recreate the recreations. And actually, this, the video you're watching, was written just before The New Yorker published a Malcolm Gladwell story about Apple, Xerox, and the nature of innovation. We're all building with the same materials. Sometimes by coincidence we get similar results, but sometimes innovations just seem inevitable. The genes in our bodies can be traced back over 3.5 billion years to a single organism, Luca, the last universal common ancestor. As Luca reproduced, its genes copied and copied and copied and copied, sometimes with mistakes. They transformed. Over time, this produced every one of the billions of species of life on Earth. Some of these adopted sexual reproduction, combining the genes of individuals, and altogether, the best adapted life forms.
Alright, this is bad. I can't work out the camera. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, future me. We were going to do a time lapse. I don't know if we can now. I keep fiddling with the camera. It should be like up here. To do that, I would have to have the cord running across. And then I would keep, really whack into it as I put it up against the door somehow. hard enough. Every time I pick something up, the back of my brain feels like it's being kicked. So that's making whining noises. That's why. Yeah, this migraine isn't going away. I'm just continuing. Oh, I keep going. Oh, I'd like to see what my face looks like when I'm in this amount of pain, and then I look up and my face is nowhere near it. Because every time I pick it up, I'm like, oh! Like when I put shit down, I'm like, ah! Then I look up and the camera's like showing the wall. This is my dumb plan. I'm gonna put it all on there, and then I'll have to clear it off. So I have to rearrange it. God! About to fucking leave you, man. I'm just gonna leave you. Leave you. I don't even know what that means.
This is evolution. Copy, transform, and combine. And culture evolves in a similar way, but the elements aren't genes, they're memes. Ideas, behaviors, skills. Memes are copied, transformed, and combined. And the dominant ideas of our time are the memes that spread the most. This is social evolution. Copy, transform.
I keep forgetting that that's got
It's who
shit
we
on it,
are.
and I keep
It's how
putting
we
my
live,
hand in it.
And of course, it's how we create. Our new ideas evolve from the old ones. But our system of law doesn't acknowledge the derivative nature of creativity. Instead, ideas are regarded as property, as unique and original lots with distinct boundaries. But ideas aren't so tidy. They're layered, they're interwoven, they're tangled. And when the system conflicts with the reality, the system starts to fail.
You can turn any slogan or funny quote into a professional design in just minutes with one tool. Making text-only designs, whether that's shirts or anything else, used to be super hard, but that's a thing of the past because...
For almost our entire history, ideas were free. The works of Shakespeare, Gutenberg, and Rembrandt could be openly copied and built upon. But the growing dominance of the market economy, where the products of our intellectual labors are bought and sold, produced an unfortunate side effect. Let's say a guy invents a better light bulb. His price needs to cover not just the manufacturing cost, but also the cost of inventing the thing in the first place. Now let's say a competitor starts manufacturing a competing copy. The competitor doesn't need to cover those development costs, so his version can be cheaper. The bottom line, original creations can't compete with the price of copies. In the United States, the introduction of copyrights and patents was intended to address this imbalance. Copyrights covered media, patents covered inventions. Both aim to encourage the creation and proliferation of new ideas by providing a brief and limited period of exclusivity, a period where no one else could copy your work. This gave creators a window in which to cover their investment and earn a profit. After that, their work entered the public domain, where it could spread far and wide and be freely built upon. And it was this that was the goal, a robust public domain, an affordable body of ideas, products, arts, and entertainment available to all. The core belief was in the common good, what would benefit everyone. But over time, this principle transformed beyond recognition. Influential thinkers proposed that ideas are a form of property, and this conviction would eventually yield a new term, intellectual property. This was a meme that would multiply wildly, thanks in part to a quirk of human psychology known as loss aversion. Simply put, we hate losing what we've got. People tend to place a much higher value on losses than on gains, so the gains we get from copying the work of others don't make a big impression. But when it's our ideas being copied, we perceive this as a loss, and we get territorial. For instance, Disney made extensive use of the public domain. Stories like Snow White, Pinocchio, and Alice in Wonderland were all taken from the public domain. But when it came time for the copyright of Disney's early films to expire, they lobbied to have the term of copyright extended. Artist Shepard Fairey has frequently used existing art in his work. This practice came to a head when he was sued by the Associated Press for basing his famous Obama Hope poster on their photo. Nonetheless, when it was his imagery used in a piece by Baxter Orr, Fairey threatened to sue. And lastly, Steve Jobs was sometimes boastful about Apple's history of copying.
We have, always been shameless about stealing great ideas.
But he harbored deep grudges against those who dared to copy Apple. I'm going to destroy Android because it's a stolen product. I'm willing to go thermonuclear war on this. When we copy, we justify it. When others copy, we vilify it. Most of us have no problem with copying, as long as we're the ones doing it. So with a blind eye toward our own mimicry and propelled by faith in markets and ownership, intellectual property swelled beyond its original scope, with broader interpretations of existing laws, new legislation, new realms of coverage, and alluring rewards. In 1981, George Harrison lost a $1.5 million case for subconsciously copying the doo-wop hit He's So Fine in his ballad, My Sweet Lord. Prior to this, plenty of songs sounded much more like other songs without ending up in court. Ray Charles created the prototype for soul music when he based I Got a Woman on the gospel song It Must Be Jesus. Starting in the late 90s, a series of new copyright laws and regulations began to be introduced, and many more are in the works. The most ambitious in scope are trade agreements. Because these are treaties and not laws, they can be negotiated in secret, with no public input and no congressional approval. In 2011, ACTA was signed by President Obama, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, currently being written in secret, aims to spread even stronger U.S. protections around the world. Of course, when the United States itself was a developing economy, it refused to sign treaties and had no protection for foreign creators. Charles Dickens famously complained about America's bustling book piracy market, calling it a horrible thing that scoundrel booksellers should grow rich. Patent coverage made the leap from physical inventions to virtual ones, most notably software. But this is not a natural transition. A patent is a blueprint for how to make an invention. Software patents are more like a loose description of what something would be like if it actually was invented. And software patents are written in the broadest possible language to get the broadest possible protection. The vagueness of these terms can sometimes reach absurd levels. For example, information manufacturing machine, which covers anything computer-like, or material object, which covers pretty much anything. The fuzziness of software patents boundaries has turned the smartphone industry into one giant turf war. 62% of all patent lawsuits are now over software. The estimated wealth lost is $500 billion. The expanding reach of intellectual property has introduced more and more possibilities for opportunistic litigation, suing to make a buck. Two new species evolved as an entire business model is lawsuits. Sample trolls and patent trolls. These are corporations that don't actually produce anything. They acquire a library of intellectual property rights, then litigate to earn profits. And because legal defense is hundreds of thousands of dollars in copyright cases and millions in patents, their targets are usually highly motivated to settle out of court. The most famous sample troll is Bridgeport Music, which has filed hundreds of lawsuits. In 2005, they scored an influential court decision over this 2-second sample. That's it. And not only was the sample short, it was virtually unrecognizable. His verdict essentially rendered any kind of sampling, no matter how small, infringing. The sample-heavy musical collages of hip-hop's golden age are now impossibly expensive to create. Now, patent trolls are most common back in that troubled realm of software. And perhaps the most inexplicable case is that of Paul Allen. He's one of the founders of Microsoft, he's a billionaire, he's an esteemed philanthropist who's pledged to give away much of his fortune, and he claims basic web features like related links, alerts, and recommendations were invented by his long-defunct company. So the self-proclaimed Idea Man sued pretty much all of Silicon Valley in 2010. He did this despite no lack of fame or fortune. So to recap, the full picture looks like this. We believe that ideas are property, and we're excessively territorial when we feel that property belongs to us.
Jesus.
Our laws then indulge this bias with ever-broadening protections and massive rewards. Meanwhile, huge legal fees encourage defendants to pay up and settle out of court. It's a discouraging scenario, and it raises the question, what now?
This is the Google Pixel 9 Pro, and this is a dance tutorial, but with circle to search, it's also a by that wavy mirror in the background tutorial. Whoa, nice move.
Shut up!
It's a bit like a renovation. Both have highs and lows. Having the right tools can help make all the
Please be
difference.
quiet.
Now. The belief in intellectual property has grown so dominant, it's pushed the original intent of copyrights and patents out of the public consciousness. But that original purpose is still right there in plain sight. The Copyright Act of 1790 is entitled An Act for the Encouragement of Learning. The Patent Act is to promote the progress of useful arts. The exclusive rights these acts introduced were a compromise for a greater purpose. The intent was to better the lives of everyone by incentivizing creativity and producing a rich public domain, a shared pool of knowledge open to all. But exclusive rights themselves came to be considered the point, so they were strengthened and expanded, and the result hasn't been more progress or more learning, it's been more squabbling and more abuse. We live in an age with daunting problems. We need the best ideas possible, we need them now, we need them to spread fast. The common good is a meme that was overwhelmed by intellectual property. It needs to spread again. If the meme prospers, our laws, our norms, our society, they all transform. That's social evolution, and it's not up to governments, corporations, or lawyers. It's up to us.
Alright, this is the...
Everything is a Remix has the best shirts on the internet.
What?
And we now have styles for infants and youths. See the link below.
Fuck off. This is an updated edition, apparently. It's trying to sell out.
Remix. To copy, transform, and combine existing materials to produce something new. Remixing is everywhere you look. TikTok is remixing. You do your version of dance moves, you lip sync to someone else's audio, you duet, literally.
Fuck, my head hurts.
Memes are remixing. You take a photo, you repurpose it, then someone else tries it, then there's a flood of everyone trying out combinations, including remixing other memes. When you take something old and use it in something new, that's remixing. It might seem like just copying, but it's actually something much more. Remixing can empower you to be more creative. Remixing allows us to make music without playing instruments, to create software without coding, to create bigger and more complex
fuck my
ideas
head.
out of smaller and simpler ideas. You don't need expensive tools to remix, you don't need a distributor, you don't even need skills or good judgment. Everybody can remix, and everybody does. From our songs and games and movies and memes, to how we train computers to create, to the way we make sense of reality,
my
to the
fucking
evolution
head.
of life itself,
Shut up.
everything is definitely a remix.
Mobile VPU editor. Make videos.
Why did you give me an ad for something I downloaded yesterday or the day before?
Nifty.
Pretty sure.
To explain, let's start in the Bronx in 1972.
Did he redo this movie or not? I guess it's just content, it's not really a documentary.
In the early
I think
70s
this
in
is a
New York
documentary.
City, a new technique for creating music starts to form. At parties, DJs are looping the dancers' favorite parts of songs.
So he plays the same record on 2 decks. While the get down plays on 1, he cues the same part on 2.
An early pioneer is DJ Kool Herc, who extends instrumental breaks by switching back and forth between 2 copies of the same record. And he has partners, MCs, who sometimes speak rhythmically over these beats, just like many black entertainers have been doing for a long time. Boom, rap music is born and starts to grow.
Oh,
And
my
in the last
brain
few
hurts when I
decades
do
of the 20th
that.
century, it will transform popular music and the popular imagination.
Fuck me!
Sylvia Robinson spots this new trend and assembles a team to record an actual rap song. She creates a group called the Sugar Hill Gang. They copy the rhythm from Chic's Good Times and score rap's first hit, Rapper's Delight.
What you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat. And me, the crew, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet.
Grandmaster Flash takes Kool Herc's simple idea, refines it, and turns it into a new art. He records the first music created with turntables. This technique of taking old bits of music and using it in new music
Oh, why
becomes
is it
known
hurt my
as
brain when I
sampling.
pick shit up?
At first, rap samples are mostly
Ah!
R&B, soul, and funk. Lots of James Brown. But soon, artists are sampling different sorts of music, like rock.
Why is this
Teen
sticking out?
producer Rick Rubin sampled the Axe My Sharona in It's Tricky.
This fucking...
Tribe Called Quest uses the bass line from Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side in Can I Kick It? Can I kick it? Can I kick it?
Why won't you go?
Can I kick it? The sampling
What's the fucking
gets
point
more
of this
and more
design if it
eclectic
doesn't
and
fucking
more and
fold
more
in?
complex. Public Enemy uses non-musical sounds, speeches, sound effects, noise.
It's gonna fall off and break.
And Beastie Boys and producers
Fuck you,
Dust
designers of that
Brothers
fucking
unite
thing.
hundreds of samples in their album Paul's Boutique.
Oh, I know, we'll make it so it doesn't fold back in, it's just sticking out all the time.
Sampling spreads outside hip-hop into some of the biggest pop hits.
That'll
Sly and
really
the Family
fuck some
Stone
guy up in
gets
about
sampled
10
in
years.
Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation.
Specifically did it to fuck with me, I'm sure. Then that important.
A riff by Tom Tom Club is used in Mariah Carey's Fantasy. The group Len samples a long-forgotten disco hit by Andrea True Connection in Steal My Sunshine. And Britney Spears' Toxic uses a highly modified sample from an 80s Bollywood musical. But one of the most famous and least recognizable samples in pop is in Daft Punk's One More Time, which slices up a song by Eddie Johns. Firstly,
jeez.
3 parts are isolated. Then the song gets slowed down. The second part then loops 3 times, then the first part plays once. This little sequence then loops 2 more times, then the third part loops 7.5 times, then the first part plays. This whole sequence loops throughout the song. Eddie John's song becomes a Daft Punk song by just chopping it up, stretching it, and rearranging the parts. Sampling reached its pinnacle with the Avalanche's album Since I Left You, which merges perhaps thousands of samples into a swirl of sound unlike anything else.
That boy needs therapy.
The album is layered together from distorted
They
bits
didn't do
of
much
obscure
else.
songs, sketch comedy, and movie dialogue.
It's the opinion of the entire staff that Dexter is criminally insane.
That boy needs
The title
therapy.
track loops and speeds up a variety of forgotten songs from the 60s and 70s, then slices up, pitch shifts, and rearranges a vocal into an entirely new melody.
Since I met you, I found the world so new. Since I met you, I found the world so new.
And finally, sampling leaves behind the 20th century and the world of
still say
CDs and vinyl
DJ
and
Shadow's
physical
the
media
king.
and takes to an explosively growing new medium, the internet. Greg Gillis's project Girl Talk challenges the entire
There you go.
concept
Now
of
he's talking
musical
about Girl
ownership with a series of flagrantly illegal mashup albums that can be downloaded for free. Each song is composed entirely of uncleared samples by popular artists.
This is the Google Pixel 9
Stop
Pro.
all the
And
ads,
this is your
please.
family leaving the photo you just
Oh,
took.
this is me not giving a shit.
And adding
I'll
you.
never
So
buy a
now
fucking
if
Google
I
phone. I don't know how to
from the
explain that to you,
photo,
algorithm. I'm never going to buy a Pixel. At least not until they're like fucking less than $300. Which is never. So there you go. Stop wasting time advertising.
Hip-hop began at block parties in the Bronx and grew to dominate popular music. And along with it, so did sampling and so did remixing. Remixing is now a core element of music. Even when artists aren't remixing, they're often curating and manipulating sound in a similar kind of way. But remixing didn't begin with hip-hop. Earlier musicians were remixing too. They couldn't sample, but they could still copy. Just like rap is a remix, so is rock. To explain, let's travel to England in 1968. After the breakup of the band The Yardbirds, their virtuoso guitarist, Jimmy Page, starts a new group. He recruits John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and John Bonham to form Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah, this is repeating that too before.
They play a new kind of incredibly loud electric blues, and within just a few years, they're the biggest band on the planet. And yet, Led Zeppelin are dogged by controversy. Many critics and peers label them as rip-offs. The case goes like this. Dazed and Confused features different lyrics, but is clearly an uncredited cover of the same titled song by Jake Holmes. Holmes filed suit over 40 years later in 2010. A settlement is reached, and Holmes' name is finally added to the credits.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. I'm dazed and confused.
It's kind of repeating the same shit, isn't it?
The iconic guitar riff of Whole Lotta Love is the creation.
Let's try this one. Everything is content. I don't know, let's just see a
Creative work online
documentary on
has been
Girl Talk.
broadly labeled content. Content is a state of mind. I think the widespread embrace of the word content actually means something. And it's...
That's the one I thought it was. RIP, a remix manifesto. Yeah. It's from 2008, I think. I used to make mashups. They weren't very good.
Something fresh out of something stale.
I used to play a lot of them when I did, Joe.
And we heard Girl Talk.
On the aesthetic and legal margins of music.
When you experiment with cut-ups over a period of time, you find that some of the cut-ups seem to refer to future events.
Right. And how random is random?
Don't question the most insidious virus amidst this illegal downloading of music is
Some people with some samplers.
Which poppy noise sounds like plunderphonics? It sounds happy, up-tempo, fun, poppy. Michael Jackson had the Mounties called in to confiscate all copies of the CD.
Now, before we get our freak on, we need to match up our beats.
just where he was trying to get.
It's terrible. I'm just bringing all shit back in. It's all I can do right now.
Let's stop and play a game. See if you can tell me the author of this song. If you guessed the Jackson 5, you'd be wrong. Try again. If you guessed Queen, you're still wrong. Because this music was created by my favorite artist, Girl Talk. Girl Talk makes mashups. His computer is an instrument, and the notes he plays are sampled from thousands of pop music classics, cut up and rearranged to create new
So
songs.
we're gonna be able to find anything for like 6 months now.
Pop music and or music from different genres seems untouchable. You know, John seems untouchable. Obviously, they create that and they force that idea in your mind that these people are superstars and untouchable. So just being able to just manipulate and do whatever you want, you know, just kind of put Elton John in a headlock and just, you know, put a beat behind him and pour a beer on his head.
Whether or not you think this music is original isn't the point, because the rules of this game don't depend on who made the songs. They depend on who owns the copyright. And according to the people that do, sampling even a single note is grounds for a lawsuit. That means these kids should not be dancing. And you shouldn't be watching, because using these songs in my movie is against the rules too. And the fact that there are people out there calling my favorite artist a criminal is exactly why I need to make this film. This movie is about a war. A war for ideas. The battleground is the internet. And I take that personally, because I was born at the exact same time as the internet.
I took 1 step forward and 5 steps back, huh? Oh, fuck my brain, man. How do I get rid of this fucking headache? Migraine, whatever the fuck it is.
I was born on a small island off the west coast of Canada. My parents were trying to get away from the war. But like all kids, I wanted the opposite. I wanted to connect back. Luckily, the creators of the internet thought the same way.
computer would talk to this computer, sending a message first to this computer and forward it on to this computer, thereby acting as a relay.
Millions of computers were connected and evolved into one perfect machine, designed for a single purpose: sharing information. The internet allowed me to connect from my island to the world, to communicate ideas with millions of others, and a media-literate generation emerged, able to download the world's culture and transform it into something different. And we called our new language Remix. Funny things, political things, new things were all uploaded back to the net. The creative process became more important than the product, because consumers were now creators, making the folk art of the future. But the people who owned the culture that we remixed, they represented the past, and they declared war. They didn't see a great library or an information superhighway. They saw a supermarket,
Take some more
and they
ibuprofen,
wanted
I
to
can't
get paid.
fucking cope.
For these people, ideas are intellectual property, locked up until purchase. They use infinite money, corporate lobbies, and lawsuits to protect their property. Let's call this side the copyright. On the other side are those who want to share ideas. We'll call them the copyleft. These people believe that the public domain must be protected to ensure the free exchange of ideas and the future of art and culture. These are the people I've traveled the world to find. Together we've drafted a manifesto, and it goes like this. Culture always builds on the past, but the past will always try to control the future. Our future is becoming less free, and to build free societies, we need to limit the control of the past. What these kids are doing on this dance floor is unraveling that control. The future and the past are dueling it out right here, and whoever wins gets to decide if ideas will be determined by the public domain or private corporations in science, industry, medicine, our entire culture. But let's start with everyone's favorite battle: music. Remember Girl Talk? He knows a lot about intellectual property, because by day, he's an engineer who samples biological data. By night, he tests how people's biology reacts to his musical data.
You know, people have a hard time taking a step back and thinking, wow, sampling is an instrument. Potentially in the future, we're going to look back and just be like, wow, I can't believe people were having these moral struggles with someone collaging two songs together. Seems like something that could be very dated very fast.
Well, what is the moral dilemma? Who would have a problem with Girl Talk's music?
What the fuck?
I've been at the copyright office for more than 40 years. You need to know, I don't have a computer at home. I've never done a mashup. I've actually never downloaded, a song that was hanging out there.
Can I show you a mashup?
Sure.
nose, paste that into a new window. Elvis Costello radio. So if I just highlight the first kind of percussion hit, so if I put 0.25 seconds of it there, then paste 0.125 seconds of it, which is half of that, and paste the 0.25 seconds again. So this is 1 second now, and this should be on a rhythm. Put in 0.125 seconds of silence, put it twice, so it's 0.25 seconds of silence, paste the 0.25 seconds again.
Oh my God.
Paste the 0.125 seconds.
This is a lot of copyright infringement.
So
Well,
this is 1 second
no, I'm
now.
just amazed at what he's doing.
So I'm just taking his notes and rearranging them. I'll put in the minimal version. And you can put a beat underneath that. Then I'll put in the extended version. And they're kind of layering over each other, so you can hear the ones that fit with each other. And I can slow either one of these down, so if I want to go, or speed them up, so if I want to go this, twice the speed, and increase the pitch.
So none of it is his. He's just rearranging other stuff.
So that pretty much sounds nothing like that original song, and I would say that's roughly the equivalent of, you know, taking a familiar Beatles melody on your guitar and rearranging the notes and putting a new guitar pedal sound on it. Making your own song.
It's taking something that was and turning it into something that it wasn't. There's a gazillion copyright questions that could be a great exam question for a copyright law class. The answer will always be, it depends, and in part it depends on whose it is and how upset they are.
Wouldn't there be something to be said that his creativity is being limited?
No.
No?
His creativity isn't. You can't argue your creativity when it's based on other people's stuff.
Why not?
Well, why not?
Yeah, that other documentary said you
It's
could.
obviously creative. Remember the manifesto? Culture always builds on the past. And it didn't start with girl talk. He isn't the first artist to make new music.
See, this is the documentary that I meant to watch last. At least I found it now. Oh fuck, my brain hurts, man.
Tell me a little of the story.
It's such a fail, but it's also like
Well, I just felt
it's less of a fail than leaving it all out in the hallway, in the bathroom. It's just the best I can do right now, man. My face will not stop throbbing. The back of my head, I don't know how to describe it apart from it feels like someone punches me every time I pick something up. And then punches me again when I put it down. My neck is throbbing. I'm gonna have to have full ibuprofen. But see now, like I can't see properly. I don't know where the fuck I put it. You're lucky there.
So right now I'm going to introduce the loop from the Led Zeppelin song, Whole Lotta Love, and I'm going to have kind of an A-B comparison between that riff and the riff from Muddy Waters, You Need Love.
It's 801 day, dude. see how that's sympathy to do it. Oh, shit.
Song veiled into my mind and it's come to me just like this song and I started singing. Well, I knew the tune before I heard it on the record. Oh, do I?
Hey Australia, we love having family over, so we're offering you the chance to visit Sri Lanka, our island paradise. You can pick tea, see the jungle, or chill by the beach. It's your
Oh,
choice.
stupid ads.
So if artists build on the work that came before them, then a healthy
brain
public
hurts.
domain is essential to creativity. Because in the public domain, we can freely build on earlier works. It's part of evolution. Think Mozart, Shakespeare, or Thomas Edison. But these days, the public domain isn't so healthy. Let's play the game again. See if you can sing the lyrics to this next song, written in 1893 and still not in the public domain. If you so much as hummed that, then you're a copyright criminal. Because to sing it in a theater, restaurant, or any other public space, the law requires you to pay royalties. But you wouldn't be paying this money to the two sisters who wrote the song, because they died a long time ago. You'd be paying Warner Chappell,
What?
the world's largest music publisher.
Warner
The
Brothers
song
owns it?
makes them millions of dollars a year
Fuck's
in
sake, I
licensing
didn't know that.
revenue. So what do you think would happen if Girl Talk and I were to ask permission to sample from the people who own the history of music?
Yeah, hi, I'm looking if you can pass me on to the copyright manager.
No, they only take emails. They don't take calls.
Is there anybody that just can kind of explain it to me? Hey.
Hi there.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm making a documentary film, and one of the characters, he uses a lot of different samples in his music.
Okay.
Do we have to clear that for a film as well?
Has he released a CD or recording of this music?
Should I hang up?
Well, it's very possible that he has not cleared the samples through us. He's legally not allowed to use any of these songs unless he clears the samples through us first.
So let's do the math. This Girl Talk song crams 21 songs into 3 minutes. Each title is owned by an average of 4 corporations
Fuck, my head
who
hurts.
want at least $2,500 per sample. That makes $210,000 just for the publishers. The recordings are owned by labels, another $52,000. So far, that's $262,500. To clear his album, he'd be looking at well over $4 million. And the best part is that if any of these 85 corporations don't like mashups, they can just pull the plug. And if you keep on making the music, well, that's when the lawsuits start happening. So how did it come to this?
I think he never got
Well, believe it or
sued.
not, copyright was originally designed to encourage people to create, not stop them. Once
Yeah,
upon a
they
time,
explained it.
all ideas were in the public domain. Every invention and every piece of art could be built upon by the generation that followed. And one inventor built in the public domain to create the printing press, the machine that created the modern world, and with it, a beautiful dilemma. Now ideas could be spread around the globe. But how could an individual now profit from his or her creative efforts? The solution was the first copyright law. The Statute of Anne gave authors exclusive rights to their work.
Fuck, my
But
brain
the law
hurts.
was meant to be a balance rights of authors and those of the public. So after 14 years, the work fell into the public domain and anyone could copy it. But over the years, people kept inventing newer and better copying machines, each disrupting the business model that had come before. From the player piano to the radio to the VCR, each technology originally copied ideas without paying the copyright holder. The solution was always a balance. Lawmakers ensured the right of the new technology to innovate, while maintaining the right of authors to still get paid. By 1998, the music industry was raking in over $13 billion a year. And that's when an 18-year-old college dropout invented Napster, a program that transformed the world's computers into a peer-to-peer music sharing network. The record industry realized that in this future, they would lose control. So when Napster offered to pay $1 billion in exchange for a license to allow their users to keep copying, the record industry refused to evolve, parted with history, and started suing.
Meet the all-new Movavi video editor. Edit quickly and easily with the intuitive timeline and frame-precise video heading.
Shut the fuck up!
Add effects in a clip.
Hi, I'm one of the kids who was prosecuted for downloading music free off the internet.
What is it about? In essence, it's about control.
Fuck you,
It's really
Buzz.
about controlling what you own. To own and control his own art. Yes, is controlling that. Time out for 1 second. Part of what we're trying to do here is make people understand that what they're doing is illegal.
That means come clean, delete your files, and promise to never ever do it again.
But Napster was a peer-to-peer technology, the opposite of broadcast. It allowed people to share files directly between individuals. You didn't need a central signal, you just needed a connection and a friend. And there were a lot more of us than there were of them.
When Napster was shut down, it was like we were cockroaches, they turned the lights on, we all streamed under the furniture. And we had missed the fact that in 18 months, we'd assembled the largest library of human creativity ever, and we'd done it for free. When the court shut Napster down, there were, I think, 52 million Napster users, and 50 million had voted for each political candidate in the presidential election. So there were enough Napster users to change, the outcome of an election.
Napster had captured the world's attention because it was simple, effective, and deliciously fun. Everyone started sharing all their music, and before you knew it, we had built up the greatest library of music in history. But it also meant we didn't need the record labels anymore, because now we were all distributors.
For the longest period of time, the industry had controlled technology, and therefore the people were subservient to that technology. This is like the power goes back to the people.
Right,
And it's definitely been two different
but
worlds.
there's millions of dollars involved in this. If the record company bosses don't take the money, then the internet people are going to take. Somebody's going to profit off this, and if it's not the artist, then you're profiting illegally. It's bulletproof. I mean, it's
bulletproof meaning what?
That if you're going to do this, you're going to have people like Metallica with very deep pockets who are very tenacious on your back all the time, and that's something that you want to continue pursuing, basically.
Welcome to point 2. The established powers of the past will always try to control the future.
We received notice from the attorney that there's been illegal activity on our computer. She was representing, of course, the recording industry. She said, you're guilty, Mr. Smith, of downloading songs illegally on your computer. And I said to the woman, I said, I've never downloaded songs. And she said, well, someone in your household must have. And I said, perhaps. I said, you have to understand, my computer is our family computer. And on any given Friday or Saturday night, my child would have maybe dozens of friends over. And at that point, she said, well, we will send you a form, and you can implicate your child. I'm Don Smith. I'm a pastor and a ministry consultant from McKinney, Texas, in the Dallas, Texas area, and I have been sued for copyright infringement.
this world in which we pretend that we're not all copyright criminals is like the Victorians, who pretended that they didn't all masturbate. Right? The official line was, if you masturbate, you get hair on your palms, you go blind, you go nuts. Right? The official line today is that only bad people copy files without authorization. In both cases, it's not true. And I think that what's happening with copyright is the same thing that happened with masturbation, that people are starting to admit to each other, yeah, I do it too.
Fucking Timu, fuck off! Go broke, Timu.
But at the same time the law made 52 million people copyright criminals, one lawyer was launching a movement to set them all free. His name is Lawrence Lessig. He's the guy who wrote the manifesto that inspired this film.
You the Adbusters guy?
The one thing that's absolutely clear is that there's no way to kill this technology. We can only criminalize its use. We can't stop people from taking culture and remaking it in a way that expresses their ideas differently if we can only drive this creativity underground. We can't make our kids passive in the way we were growing up. We can only make them, quote, pirates. And the question we've got to ask is whether this is any good.
Lessig has been traveling the globe for over a decade, sounding the alarm on his own country's copyright policy.
You know, I'm not anti-American, so I'm not trying to rally people against America, but I am anti this particular version of American policy. I'm embarrassed by it because it is so extreme relative to our tradition, and it does harm when this kind of extremism is forced on developing nations. And I think it's particularly appropriate then to come to developing nations and to at least get them to recognize that there's another side to this story. So I felt like a lawyer with a guilty conscience that, you know, somehow there had to be a balance to this, and if a mess was being created because lawyers were playing into the hands of these, you know, people who profited from this, then lawyers needed to be on the other side. So that's what really got me going.
I want to make a mashup film, basically. I want to take all my favorite mashups, my favorite movies on these subjects, stuff I find on the internet, and I want to cut this together in a way that really tells the story of the last 10 years of copyright. I'm wondering if maybe you can take a look at it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's totally illegal.
They take my house.
Do you have a house?
No.
Well, then don't worry.
Okay, I think that this is the kind of advice I was looking for. But isn't there some fair use in here?
Yeah.
Or is it all fair use?
Well, in my view of what fair use ought to be, everything you've shown me should be fair use.
Fair use is a part of copyright law that allows for free speech. I can use small amounts of copyrighted material to make an argument. I can still get sued, but now I have a defense.
I think that the way you should think about it is, imagine you were writing an essay, and in the course of the essay you would quote stuff from your culture, right? You'd quote passages from, you know, some popular writer, or you'd have passages from Shakespeare, whatever. You just include it, and you'd use it to try to make your story, right? And what you do is you'd quote and you'd cite. That's what you do. You should have the same freedom with film as that writer has with that text. Nobody would doubt that the writer could do that with the text, but it's a federal case whether you're allowed to do that with film.
The coolest lawyer in the world just told me I'm making an illegal film. If I want to use this Girl Talk song, I would need to ask dozens of rock stars and get permission from the Warner Brothers. But there's no amount of money in the world that would convince the music industry to allow me to use their own music to criticize them. If it were up to them, you wouldn't be allowed to hear anything.
Without paying, anyway.
Generate silence. make a mashup film without playing a mashup. My one hope is fair use, because I am making a point. My point is that copyright is
This is
out of
going to
control.
get 1.8
It's been
thousand
manipulated
likes.
for profit at everyone's expense.
That's weird.
This is a global issue, so the debate shouldn't be limited to just me or a bunch of lawyers and lobbyists. Why not enlist the world's remixers to join the discussion? I've started a website called Open Source Cinema, and I put all my footage online to see what people will do with it. So far, this film has been mixed and remixed to the point where 64 university students even got together to make an animated version.
Whoa. Whoa.
So now I've got a posse, and we're creating this movie together. Whenever you see this sign, you'll know that this piece of video came from someone else. Maybe it came from you.
These are communities. They're being created by the opportunity this technology makes available. And these communities engage in a kind of conversation, each one taking what the other had done and adding to it, mixing it and changing it, and engaging in a creative act.
And my community taught me that the remix game has been going on for a long time.
When you experiment with cut-ups over a period of time, you find that some of the cut-ups and rearranged text seem to refer to future events. Stop at random and cut in breaks, never new juxtaposition. Now, of course, this procedure on the tape recorder produces new words by order juxtaposition.
PlayStation control.
At first I tried to create new art forms out of the remains of older cultures.
From the Dadaists to the beat poets to the pop art of Warhol, today's remixers are standing on the shoulders of
That's
giants.
what I said. I must have got it from this.
Importance of this remix has nothing to do with the technique that each of these videos demonstrates. The importance is that this
I got my
technique
car. I gotta
has
drive,
now
man.
been democratized.
How do I get out to get there?
This
Fuck.
remix gives
It's not
anyone
good,
with
boss.
access to a $1,500 computer the power to say things differently.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for a day. Go to girls, peace.
This is writing in the 21st century. It is literacy for a new generation. It is building a different democracy. It is building a different culture where people participate in the creation and the recreation of the culture around us. A form of culture that has existed from the beginning of human society all the way through the present except for 1 century, the 20th century.
I'm trying to fix my clarity, man. I can't get rid of this headache.
Well, if you were born in the 20th century like I was, you're probably familiar with the song you're listening to. And you probably grew up watching the creations of Walt Disney. I love this stuff. And so does Cory Doctorow, who's probably one of the only copyright activists in Mickey's Club.
Ultimately, what this is a ride about is about glorifying piracy. They have a great gift shop when you get off that's all full of pirate stuff. I always walk in and I go, man, all this stuff makes me want to download a movie.
I'm a big fan of this man, Walt Disney. I'm a big fan of his work because his greatest works demonstrate beautifully how culture builds on the past. What Walt Disney did, better than perhaps anybody else, was to take works that were in the public domain and updated it and made it relevant for our age.
You boys?
His work was always continuing the conversation of a culture. It was an expression through a remix of the stuff that went before.
He was a mashup artist. Steamboat Willie was based on Steamboat Bill, and in his notes on the score, he says basically he instructs his staff, go and rip off Steamboat Bill for me, please.
Steamboat Bill, steaming down the Mississippi.
Use that so that people will know that we're referencing Steamboat Bill here. Mickey was meant to be a stand-in for every person, to be a kind of generic, everyman. And so I think that we were told to identify with Mickey. And when you're told to identify with Mickey, you sometimes do.
In the 1960s, a cartoonist named Dan O'Neill wanted to turn American capitalism on its head. And for him, Mickey Mouse was the only character for the job. O'Neill and a collective of proto-remixers known as the Air Pirates reimagined Mickey as a drug-dealing revolutionary. Disney sued, repeatedly. It was a love generation standoff between freedom of speech versus the right of a corporation to control its intellectual property.
Do you feel that an artist has rights to characters that he creates? Absolutely not. My soul is not stand for it.
Oh, how nice. This is great.
You should use this in court.
Well, yeah, I did put in one of these things in court where they had for $1.25 how to draw Mickey Mouse and said on it. I mean, you guys want to tell me how to do this. This is the 1950s CIA mouse, see? See, this is 1928 Steamboat Willie. This is the real mouse here. And they weren't using him, and then when we used him, they went back to him like a shot. They're right back to him, oh boy. They put this image into everybody's mind. So basically we have a mouse disease. Artists inflicted with this impulse to draw your stupid mouse.
Despite multiple trips to court, O'Neill couldn't stop drawing Mickey. He formed a remixed terrorist group called the Mouse Liberation Front, enlisting cartoonists around the world to draw their own Mickey. Disney finally hauled O'Neill to the Supreme Court, whose unanimous decision, 9-0, was that the Air Pirates' use of Mickey Mouse was not fair. They had taken, quote, too much.
So I had all the underground dope lawyers of the 60s all around, so they didn't know anything about copyright. I mean, that's Mickey Mouse, but everybody knows that's not Mickey Mouse, because Mickey Mouse wouldn't do that.
Well, why go after Mickey? Why did you?
Well, because Mickey, I would have gone after Popeye. I would have gone after Little Lulu. I would have gone after anybody who was paranoid enough to attack everybody on sight. It wasn't about Mickey Mouse. It was about that Disney sued everybody for just looking at them. All of a sudden, this is really silly. Alrighty then. Let's see. Another federal crime.
Fuck yeah. Why do I have these fucking peanut butter jars? I'm never gonna eat it.
Bricks and mortar and lime.
I don't even need them. What am I gonna use them for?
Now it's done. But can you spare a dime?
Now, after Walt Disney,
If you want quality gear at prices for all, it's gotta be Adventure Kings. And for super savings on Adventure
Shut up, shut up!
Drive Super Center on sale now. Super save.
I'm not buying anything. Fuck you.
Walt Disney Corporation changed.
Yes.
It's no longer the objective.
I'm not even gonna try and hide it, man. My head, the back of my eyes, feel like I'm being stabbed. I'm in fucking constant pain at the moment. Wow. Some reason, like, whatever part of my brain is still working is like, okay, just distract us with some interesting information and that'll keep us going. And then the fucking ads come on and that same part of my brain goes, that's fun. It's like part of my brain is like, okay, I'll help you ignore this fucking pain. Just give me that sweet, sweet dopamine with some information. Oh, baby. Lick it up. Oh, it's finger looking good. This is something we're interested in too. And then as soon as the ads come on, it's like, I don't care about that. I'm not going to buy that. I hate that company forever. Why is it making me stop with the dopamine drip? Sinuses are dripping inside now, so that's fun. Oh, fuck. And now my stomach's deciding, oh yeah, you know how we haven't eaten for about 18 hours? I'm hungry. Well, I mean, I got... I have to check my text. I think they're going to be back in like 4 hours, so... It's very selfish, me making myself do this on webcam is actually working. We'll be home tomorrow after lunch. Hope all went okay. I got the date wrong. I thought I had this job search thing appointment yesterday, and there was some point yesterday where I double checked. I was like, oh, it's not till the 29th. And it was like my brain went, oh good, because I didn't mention, like, you're just feeling a bit shitty. I didn't mention we're very shitty. Yeah, thanks. I'll just let the fucking... Because I don't know, the appointment's for 1 o'clock, and my car was at the mechanic, and I was like, oh, I'll have to, like, work out how to get there now. There's 50-cent public transport in Queensland at the moment, so I was like, okay, I can work it out somehow. But I wasn't feeling very well. And then a parcel came in the mail, and I was like, oh, that's a bit better. And then I checked, and it's like, oh, okay, it's not till tomorrow. That's good. And then, yeah, like I said, I went from feeling a bit shitty to just ridiculously shitty, and the migraine came on. I was like, that makes no sense. Like, I've gotten out of the thing that I was worried about going to, and now you're deciding to, like, punish me, brain? Like, what the fuck?
Simply to create works and build in the past. Instead, it
It's
was
a
also
cool
the
story, old
objective
man.
to control Disney works, to make sure others couldn't build upon them.
Now, Disney lawyers have taken aim at this Florida daycare center, saying it has no right to use Disney characters on its walls. The daycare center, called Very Important Babies, received a letter from the Disney company insisting the characters violate copyright laws and could give the impression that the center is affiliated with Disney.
I don't know of anyone who ever drove by here and went, oh look, Disneyland.
Kids and parents here at Very Important Babies don't want to lose Mickey.
I'll feel sad a lot
If they took Mickey down, why?
because I like him. It hurt me real bad. It make me cry.
So if you want to know why Happy Birthday still isn't in the public domain, it's because after Walt Disney died, the Walt Disney Corporation asked the President of the United States to give them the most magical birthday gift of all.
Extended copyright.
Finally, there was a distinguished visitor at the White House today. This fellow received a rather special welcome. And why not? He is the most famous mouse.
It's a fucking man in a fucking mascot suit. It's a fucking furry, for fuck's sake.
There was even a stirring rendition of the
And they're
old
talking about it on the
Mouseketeer
real
song.
news, like, oh look, there's a furry in the White
On
House.
Mickey's 60th birthday, copyright law was rewritten to give the Disney Empire control of the mouse indefinitely. Copyright terms were extended to the life of the author plus 70 years. Corporations got 95 years, more than quadrupling the original 14-year term of U.S. copyright. And it wasn't just Mickey. Everything that was supposed to be free to remix was now locked up. So today, if you want to make art from the public domain, you'll have to settle for works created before 1923. So here we have the best example of points 1 and 2. Walt Disney built on the past, then he died, and the Walt Disney Corporation changed the law so that no one else could do it again. Nowadays, if you want to be a mashup artist like Walt Disney, you've got to work outside the law.
We used to always do Hall & Oates. That was our favorite group. And Greg, he always liked Hall & Oates too. And I saw one interview in one of the articles, and they said, "How do you keep it real?" And Greg said, "I put Hall & Oates on every one of my albums." So we thought that was nice.
There's me with my shirt off in high school at a joystick show.
Oh,
So there you go.
That's way back. I told him keep this shirt on. I told him keep this shirt on too. Yes. Okay,
Shirt's not bad. Just keep the pants on.
Sometimes it gets hot up there.
You
It
know.
loosens people up, you know, they feel good,
Yeah,
comfortable.
but again,
I used to really... I admired what he was doing. I didn't always like the results. Because he gave away his albums for free, but you could donate. I thought that was a fantastic idea. I got into Girl Talk enough that I looked up the type of laptop he used, and they don't even use... Every now and then you see one on eBay or some or marketplace. There used to be this laptop called a Toughbook that was like designed for the military, and I think in Iraq. And he'd use it because like he'd let people come up on stage, and a normal laptop, and he'd like take all his clothes off, like he'd really get into it, even though he's just like push and play. And I think he used a DAW live, like DAW. I know what he used to play live. I think. Yeah, no, my brain's fucked. I can't remember what he used as a DAW to create on, but they're all fucking variations of the same thing. I should do a video on how to use. I saw one guy he uses. Cool Edit? Is that what they call it now? No. Oh, bro, my brain is fucked. I haven't called it Cool Edit since the 90s. Anyway. Whoa! Yeah. Yeah. You ever surprised how fucked your brain is? Like, you're like, wait, Audacity is the name of the software. Fuck's sake. When I first used it, it was called Cool Edit Pro 2, I think. That's how old that's how old the software was when we got it. But yeah, you can use that as a fucking DAW, even though it's actually an audio editor. You can use it as a tracker, is that the name of the software we used to call it? Fuck. Alright, anyway, Is this recording and streaming? How did that happen? It's not worth recording.
Greg, like we said before, we think you're talented enough.
Anyway, nobody
Why
uses
you take your
Toughbooks
pants
anymore.
off?
as far as I know.
that all the time.
I don't do it all the time. I only I
I take
Yeah,
my
look
shirt
at what
off when
software
it's
you use
hot,
live. I don't know what
and
it is.
most of the time when my pants come off, it's because people ripped it off, and I can't be this guy conducting this party and have my pants taken off and then me, hiking them back up. And other people take their clothes off too. It's just, it's that sort of environment.
Yeah. I think he's talented and very creative, but there's always that concern with the copyright. So I think
Why'd you have to go there?
I'm sorry.
After here?
After I said that, I thought,
We're afraid he may land in jail or get sued or something along those lines because, we know what he does. Supposedly it's copyright infringement, so, we're waiting for the shoe to drop. It hasn't, but, we're concerned.
Everyone's just going to keep getting more and more extreme with protecting their own ideas. And, I think eventually everyone's going to realize that it's beneficial to share ideas.
Well, that's the hope. Although the past is doing a pretty good job of controlling the future. But remixers are fighting back.
He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certain.
Before I'd ever heard of Girl Talk, my remix heroes were Negative Land, professional shit disturbers who were sued for remixing U2.
That's the letter U and the numeral 2. The four-man band features Adam Clayton on bass, Larry Warren on drums, Dave Evans, nicknamed Edge, on disc version. Nobody cares. These guys are from England, and who gives a shit? Just a lot of wasted names.
More accurately, they were sued by U2's label, Island Records, for mixing the band with Casey Kasem.
Bullshit. This is bullshit.
While we were on tour, I was handed a tape by someone at the show, and this is a tape recording of top 40 disc jockey Casey Kasem.
Throwing his head
having a
off.
really bad day in the studio.
And I gotta tell you, when I first heard him, it blew
It's a
me
remix.
away. And it still does
You remember
today
shit like
every time I
this?
listen to the tape.
About 10 days after the single came out, 180-page
Oh, is this Negative Land? Yeah. It's gotta be Negative Land. Yeah, Sonic Yellow, that's Negative Land. What's the fucking Negative Land doco? It's on Internet Archive. I don't know if it'll be on. So the two I gotta play again, even though I've seen them. I'll do on stream where I'm doing this boring shit, so you got something interesting to listen to. There's that documentary on Negative Land, which is a cool sample-based band. Like, they sampled everything. They used to sample fucking CB radio back in the day when, like, cordless phones, they all seem to transmit on similar signals. And they lived in San Francisco, like up on a mountain bit, and they would pick up all these random signals with these little receivers. So they were like recording people's private conversations and using them for songs, and like a lot of them aren't songs. It's more like a fucking soundscape type thing. Yeah, the big controversy they got into was they released a song called U2, but they made the cover look like U2 was the band and Negative Land was the song, if you get what I mean. And then like U2 sued him, but then Bono was like, did all these things. Good luck to him, you know. Like, he made it seem like he didn't give a shit and thought it was kind of funny, because they released it the same day. I don't know if they timed it, but it happened to be the same day U2 put out a song, a new single. So people bought like this Negative Land, like weird. And it was like basically like a cut-up mashup of With or Without You, or one of those, like their old songs. And yeah, the record labels... Anyway, I'll play that some other time. And also the Residents one, was it Perpetual Obscurity or something? Ugh.
Are we supposed to say certain things are off limits to making art? Is art off limits? Is other people's art off limits, to making art? That doesn't make any sense. That's just silly. That's just some business guy's way of thinking.
Yeah, that's true. All the way up to 6.
Negative Land coined a phrase to describe their take on remixing. They called it culture jamming. They wanted to use the modern media against itself, to critique the power it has over our lives.
Gosh, what a...
corporations are completely taking over our culture and telling us that we can only consume it. And we're saying no. We're saying we want to actually create with it, respond
you're
to
right on
it,
your
take
hand
it,
anymore.
mutilate it, cut it up. We're saying, you don't ask us whether I want to have a billboard everywhere I go in my town. You don't ask me if I want to see your Nike logo everywhere I go. You don't ask me if I want to hear YouTube's music everywhere I go shopping or when I eat in a restaurant. So why do I need to ask you to take a little bit of it and make something out of it and make fun of you, critique you? Why do I need to ask?
Well, the culture jammers, mouse warriors, and remixers of the world are up against one of the most powerful industries on Earth, big media. Once comprised of countless movie studios and record companies.
Now it's like
6
5.
Hollywood studios and 4 major record labels now control Hollywood. And these companies are owned by even bigger companies. Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, News Corp, BMG, and General Electric own more than 90% of media holdings in the United States. All these companies are represented by 2 lobby groups, the Recording Industry Association of America and the Motion Picture Association of America. Like it or not, this is who owns and controls our culture. Their primary goal is to preserve the business model that made these corporations rich, even if it means convincing governments to halt the flow of new ideas, new technology, or better business models. But as powerful as these groups are, there is one thing that threatens their very existence. Yes, along with China and Russia, my home and native land was singled out as one of the world's worst pirate nations, and they sent their cops after us.
Tracking you down, a mission to stop piracy.
Fucking sad.
It started when Arnie came to talk with Prime Minister Steve about an international crisis. People making bootleg DVDs with their camcorders.
Certainly there's a lobby, there's a concerted corporate lobby to make us appear as though we are somehow derelict in our international duties if we don't enact whatever the industry lobby throws on our desk and says, this is our wish list, you must make it happen.
The wish list for Canada was simple: lock up culture. Which brings us to point 3. Our future is becoming less free. The thin edge of this wedge is technology known as digital rights management. Using this technology, the record and movie companies can prevent you from copying CDs, DVDs, and files to your computer. Rather than letting the law decide what you can and can't do, now some corporate software will decide for you.
I just call it the urinary tract infection business model. Right? It used to be that, like with a CD or with other media, all the uses of it flowed freely and easily. But with the new regime for DRM, every new use flows in a small, painful, spurting drip. Right? Every time you press a button on your remote, that's another 3 cents out of your pocket for the new rewinding right, and the new pausing right, and the new, watching this in your minivan right.
And free speech isn't in this Bill of Rights. So forget fair use. That's forbidden now. The only way I can make a mashup movie is to use software that breaks the locks put on these movies. But under Canada's proposed laws, that's a $20,000 infringement. I've done a lot of that. And I even gave a copy of the vault cracking software to my editor. Now he's on the hook for 20 grand. Sorry, Tony. And for giving him these tools, I could be fined $100,000 and go to jail for 5 years.
What we saw in the U.S. is that there was a real pressure to lock down every possible right. It becomes a question, are we talking about updating copyright for the 21st century, or are we talking about actually using this fear of copyright to bring forward a radical rewriting of copyright, so you actually have copyright in areas that would never be before?
So let's look at the American record. Lawsuits against 10-year-olds, subpoenas delivered at schools against stroke victims, against dead people. You can't put locks on your citizens.
When you're online, it's easy to find out who you are. Okay? We have the date, the name, the address, and all the 2,000 songs that you had up on your computer illegally. Okay? And you can get 5 years in jail and $250,000 fines for every single song you steal.
Isn't that a little overboard?
No, the reason why, because there's a thing called intellectual property. Intellectual property is the property of somebody's mind, okay? If I write a song about love, my unique expression about love is my property, okay? I don't own the rights to the concept of love. I wish I did. That becomes my property. I have a copyright that lasts for my life plus 70 years.
How many of you guys here actually do download music off the internet right now? Tell the truth. Do you guys, like, how many of you guys actually think that when you're downloading music that you're stealing it?
Ford has a head-turning new arrival, Ranger Black Edition, with black 17-inch alloys and side...
Since the internet came along, the entertainment lobby in the United States has pushed the government towards tougher and tougher laws, leading to lawsuits being filed against more than 24,000 American citizens.
My name is Dave Grewell.
Ray J. Schwartz.
I live in Colleyville, Texas.
I live in New York City.
My family has been sued by the RIAA.
They had about 9 or so songs targeted on there that we'd allegedly downloaded.
They threaten you with a very large sum of money.
Sick
And they
of my
wanted
film
somewhere
things, man.
around $4,500 to settle.
Hundreds, thousands.
I could be charged at a minimum $750 per song, all the way up to $150,000 per song.
Now they're going after my kids.
They're going after people on welfare. They're going after people on disability. They're going after people that don't have anything.
Most of these people were forced to settle. They couldn't afford to face the RIAA in court, so without being found guilty of anything, they lost thousands of dollars, and not a penny went to the artists that were supposedly being defended. But when Jamie Thomas, a single mom in Minnesota, refused to settle, she ended up in court accused of downloading 24 songs, the equivalent of 2 greatest hits albums.
Okay.
Let's listen to her playlist of shame.
The verdict was that I had infringed, that I was liable for copyright infringement for 24 songs, $9,250 per song, for a total of $222,000. They can take up to 25% of my wages to try and pay back the amount. Mr. Gabriel, who is the lead attorney for the plaintiffs, said it best in the steps after the verdict was read. The very first statement out of his mouth was, "This is what happens when you don't settle." It wasn't a matter of, you know, we won or this, that, and the other. That's the very first thing he said is, "This is what happens when you don't settle."
He just
I was
declared
like
bankruptcy.
thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything.
Rich people do it all the time. They just say, "Oh, sorry, I'm bankrupt. You can't have any more money." 31 degrees Celsius today. Fuck's sake. It's not even the end of winter yet, man.
That, you know, downloading and distributing our copyrighted recordings is not okay.
You know, I love Journey as much as the next person, but seriously, how far should industry be permitted to go to protect 24 songs that you can buy for $8.99 at Safeway?
I don't know these decks, so if you have any questions...
Why shouldn't they be wiretapping this apartment? After all, here we are talking about means by which music may be stolen. You know, before the radio and the record came along, the only way that people made money from making music was by standing in a hall and being charismatic. The fact is, technology giveth, technology taketh away. What was a business model in 1909 may be the business model in 2009. What was a business model in 1939 may not be the business model in 2007. That's how it goes.
It's gonna go worse, bro.
In 2007, the business model of music was completely rewritten.
Not really. They did it once.
The biggest band in the world left the record label EMI to release their next album on the internet.
Yeah, they copied
And they
Dill
let their
to it
fans
and did it
decide how
once.
much to pay for it.
They didn't do it again, bro.
Within a matter of weeks, a San Francisco DJ named Amp Live started remixing the album. But the moment he put the songs on his website, Amp Live got a cease and desist letter threatening a lawsuit.
In Rainbows is one of the top Radiohead albums. I'm a big Radiohead fan, and it was all done in celebration. Maybe it's not even Radiohead, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's some company that's involved with them that's mad because they put their music out free, being innovative, and the company's not making money right now.
Radiohead didn't send that letter. It was the company they sold their publishing rights to, Warner Chappell. The same people who own Happy Birthday. But Radiohead was now independent, and they called the shots. They told Warner to back off.
Big thanks to all the people who were sending in those YouTube clips.
I didn't hear about this, huh? I don't remember it.
And Radiohead kept going, releasing the raw studio sessions of their singles and then their videos, so fans could make their own Radiohead songs. And just like that, the wall fell down between musicians, remixers, and fans. The music industry had refused to evolve, so we evolved for them.
Hello, my name is Greg Gillis in this cubicle, and outside of here, everyone knows me as Girl Talk. It is Friday, and I'll be leaving in a few minutes to play in front of 400 kids who like my sample-based collage music.
It's Friday night, and we're going to see Girl Talk.
Show these titans, these music titans, these big ass companies. Show them where the real power lies at, man. Lies with us. Don't buy that shit.
I know there's a lot of cameras in the audience. The shit is not about me. It's about all of them.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going until I finish this, then I'm gonna have to fucking... My brain's slowly starting to... I had 4 ibuprofen, 1 Polaramin, which is supposed to be for your sinuses, and then I taxed, I think it's my mum's, it just said she'd written migraine pills on it. I don't know what it is. I think it's got some codeine in it. I can sort of breathe a bit better, so I'm gonna have to go and work out public transport to go and get my, I don't know how long that's gonna take. Since I'm not a good person, I feel, a lot of the time. I wish I was. But when I'm like in pain and short-tempered with myself, and then so in my head I'm like, if my parents get home and they're like, oh, you didn't move this shit, I'm gonna like be, and then I feel guilty because I'm not gonna do it. But if I did snap and say something, I'd, you know, the fact that they put up with my fucking weird ass living here, even though now they're trying to, you know. Shut up. Alright, I'm gonna keep going. I don't know what I'm gonna keep doing. I've gotta cook some mince. Ground beef for the Americanos. And it's like overdue, so I think it's gonna be off, and I'm probably gonna make myself sick, but fuck me, I'm a douche. I deserve to. Wow! I stopped cutting myself, but now I eat bad food. It's still self-abuse.
Things like my album, I don't think
would get heard that well without the internet and MySpace. I think we're living in the greatest period of time for music ever. So anyone can be popular, anyone's music can be heard. It's no one's controlling anything. It's back in the people's hands for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, it didn't last long. Now it's back in Spotify's hands. Spotify and TikTok is how you get famous now.
And it looks like the battle
That's
for
all
the future
fucking-
of music will only escalate. Because now he's sharing the stage with the pop stars he grew up sampling.
It's a big audience, man. What software is he using now for?
Sorry, I'd love to keep playing this music, but I can't. My fair use argument has expired. Remember the fair use game? The reason I get to play illegal mashup music is because I'm invoking free speech to make a comment, but I've already made my points about this music, so I can't legally justify showing any more.
If I can teach myself a new language while juggling fire, so can you. Well, not the fire part. Don't try this at home.
Diga, give me a cup of tea, please.
Dame una taza de té, por favor. Listen to this app for just 30 minutes, and you'll start speaking Spanish, French, Japanese, or 51 other languages. After 14 days, you'll be conversing confidently.
Ask her, do you know a good doctor?
¿Conoces a un médico? After 30 days, you'll be speaking with a near-native accent.
Continue straight ahead.
Siga derecho. The best part is you can learn while you drive, do the dishes, work out, or, juggle fire.
This way.
That's cool.
Por aquí. For more than 50 years, the Pimsleur method has made it easy for people like me to learn
Yeah,
through the
pharmacy
science of conversation.
That's my address.
Esa es mi dirección. So you can turn your found time into a powerful new skill. It's that easy and completely free to try for 7 days. Check the link in the description and comments of this video to start your journey.
Can't deny it if you got receipts. Oh, good. Don't. Yeah, that's a don't at all focus on that. Yeah, cool. Fine.
So, I guess I'll have to play something from the
No
public domain
GST.
instead.
It took literally
It's too bad
24
though,
hours.
because this was a pretty sweet show. This one really got them going. He dropped AC/DC in the middle of the Black Eyed Peas. People were blogging about it for weeks. Look, there's Paris. It's official. Copyright infringement is hot.
Did you get footage of it? Unreal. I just want to go home and just post that as my blog right now, no words. It seems really symbolic that it's like almost you won an award by being at Coachella. It's like this is the 50 bands this year who got to do it. It's just nuts to be able to play at the same time as the Chili Peppers or, with at the same show as you playing while you're playing. It's a pretty weird situation, I'll probably play more proms than I'll play Coachellas in my lifetime. I think the decision to put out next album or not changes completely for me. I'm still up in the air on whether I openly want to put out an album or whether I want to try to give it away for free or however I'm going to do it. I never thought about that before, but now I'm not as quick to just put out an album because there's such focus on it. I'm just trying to make the music I like to make, and I'm not trying to get sued. I don't want to lose all. I just was about to quit my job, so I think it would be, the perfect downward spiral for me to quit my job and put out an album and get sued out of existence. So, I don't want that to happen. I just kind of want to eat. Right now it's great. Put out, people like it, get the tour. I just wish I could continue that without having to worry about laws.
Girl Talk has more to worry about than just music and the law. Because in his day job, ideas are definitely not free. There are patents, corporate secrets, guarded like gold.
My technical title is biomedical engineer. I test devices and analyze data. In science and in my music, it's really trial and error for me. We just dabble in so many things, and that's the same way. I mean, with samples, I just sample things all day long. Then I see what works. And, you know, doing science, when you're looking at it, you just read journals, take notes. That's just, you know, collecting the data to look into a million different things to make something new. And then there's the actual processing of the data where you're saying, all right, now I have to get results. You know, the first thing you do is research it and see if there's patents for it. And a lot of time, very broad ideas are patented. But it is an experimental division, so it, you know, we keep a notebook, and they want us to propose 3 ideas per year. And I think if it were a bit more open to the point where the whole point of medicine and science were,
5 seconds
let's just
and it
do the best
died.
we can. Let's just build on all the ideas and see what we can make happen. I
Like
think
me
the progress
when I have sex. I thought I was going to keep going.
incredibly fast. All the time, you know, you come up with something and you do the research and it's been patented, and maybe your idea is slightly different, but they might hold a patent on a core, you know, part of your idea. So, you know, a lot of times it's just, that's out of the question. You know, it holds back knowledge exchange very clearly. You know, so many things just aren't developed because people are holding a patent onto it. The cure for cancer could be a step away, but, you know, it's off limits. You know, they might sit on that idea forever and do nothing with it.
When I say culture is threatened, I don't just mean music and movies. I really do mean everything.
Shut up.
The concept of intellectual property is addictive. Once you realize that ideas can be more profitable than oil or gold or even land, then there's no limit to what can be thought of as property. In 1980,
Folks have
the US
multiple of
Supreme
these.
Court ruled that living organisms
Because
could
there's
be
some stuff they don't throw out.
Soon
Which
after
one of
this
them works better
decision,
than the other?
ayahuasca, a plant from the Amazon rainforest, was patented by an American entrepreneur.
Wait, what's all this shit? Ayahuasca's multiple plants
Has been
together.
used for generations by Amazonians for medicinal and spiritual
To watch this
practice.
again.
Now that you could patent life, the race was on. The 20th century had been the century of property, of land. The 21st century was to be the century of intellectual property, of ideas.
It's both domestically and in terms of our diplomacy. You know, in a modern economy, I think wealth is in the products of the mind. It's really in intellectual creations. You know, in much of the world, we live in a sea of piracy. And, you know, you can have sympathy for developing countries, but we made a deal. You know, if you go to a shopping mall in this country, you cannot buy anything made in the United States anymore. It all comes from China or some other place like that. Well, the reason for that is that we've completely opened up our markets. It was a conscious decision to basically abandon low-wage manufacturing jobs, and the idea is that we would compensate for that with higher-wage, high-tech information, more intangible-based jobs.
The idea was that they would convince the world's economies to adopt laws that prohibited the copying of American ideas without American permission. And in exchange, it would require all the countries that wanted to manufacture stuff and export them here to adopt American copyright laws. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be allowed to sell their goods, their physical goods here in America. And the World Trade Organization would be the T.
And the difficulty in the global trading system is that we met our part of the bargain, but these other countries didn't meet theirs.
ミッキーマウスにドナルド・ダック、それにミニーちゃんも一見おなじみのディズニーのキャラクターたち。
年間平均
This knockoff of The Happiest Place on Earth highlights a problem with the American plan. For better or for worse, the information age is all about copying ideas.
It's Japanese or Chinese? What's with the Chinese or with the... Is it?
I have to say that
Yeah, it's Japanese.
we're now more than a decade, I guess we're 12 years into our policies on digital copyrights. I feel that it also has not achieved the results that we wanted.
It's definitely Japanese.
And so I'm thinking, well, maybe we should have forgotten intellectual property rights internationally and gone for labor standards in the environment.
Well, that would have been a good idea. But instead of pushing for fair trade policies, the U.S. is trying to build an economy that can't be built. Since enacting these policies, the U.S. trade deficit has nearly tripled. To top it off, the whole world is now stuck making criminals out of its citizens to enforce laws that can't be enforced. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for number 4. To build free societies, you need to limit the control of the past.
When America was a developing nation after the Revolution and for its first 100 years, it did not honor any copyrights save those that were generated by American authors. So foreign authors like Charles Dickens were widely and enthusiastically pirated by the American presses, who used the proceeds from this to subsidize the printing of Mark Twain, a local author. And so the idea that Burundi or Brazil or India needs a copyright law like America's in order to compete with America is absolutely wrong. What American history has shown us is that what they need is a copyright law like America had in 1776.
Listen to this latest remix of our favorite bittersweet song. It was created by the same country that defied United States intellectual property laws by breaking multiple international patents on HIV medication, producing their own copies of the drug for a fraction of the price. Free, universal access for citizens was their mission. The drug industry saw this as an act of war. Brazil saw it as an act of life.
Brazil is fighting for access to drugs to fight AIDS for all its people. This policy has resulted in controversy at international forums. So we've put our case to the world, and we fought for it.
Remixing the art, science, and knowledge of the world's culture is second nature to Brazilians, and now it's government policy. Lessig traveled to Brazil in 2004 for inspiration and imagined an alternative global copyright system, Creative Commons.
Creative Commons was born to set culture free. A license that says, I as a musician give you the right to sample my work, take and build, create,
should look up some Creative
remix,
Commons things. See if I can do some live remixing.
Important place where that
yeah, I do that thing I haven't done for
began
about 15
was
years.
Here in Brazil. I come from the land where we talk about being free. I come from a land where we are lost. You are our brother in this debate, and you must remind us of what we have lost.
Lessig found an ally in Gilberto Gil, one of the country's most famous musicians, who was also the Minister of Culture. He's devoted his entire life to creating a society based on sharing.
Uns me pegam para criar elite, outros me botam em um vestido lindo, cheio de notas musicais, e eu fico morando dentro da música.
We are always finding ways to, give young people opportunities for them to access. O compartilhamento é a própria natureza da criação. Não há criação isolada. Ninguém é um criador sozinho, ninguém cria nada no vácuo. Tudo já vem de alguma coisa que já foi criada antes. É uma cadeia que vai se processando. Com música, com literatura, com cinema que você está fazendo aqui agora. Quantos antes tiveram que botar uma câmera na mão para fazer o que você está fazendo agora?
Olá, eu sou o Marcos.
15 anos e moro aqui na favela da Rocinha.
Olá, galera, como vocês estão vendo? Vou entrar na minha casa agora. Fica aqui olhando essa linda vista. Pra vocês dar uma olhada também como é. Do jeito que eu gosto de cinema.
Desde 80 na Rocinha, já tirei 54 jogos do clássico, através da arte, a arte é cultura.
The modern sound of Rio is called baile funk, a music created in the city's favelas using samples from around the world. You can listen to this music in two ways. You can count the samples and calculate how much these kids might owe to American corporations. Or you can marvel at a new art form being created based on the universal language of remix in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the world.
Agora eu vou zoar.
As pessoas falam em funk, pensam em James Brown, em Michael Jackson, em qualquer outra coisa, nunca em um funk carioca. Porque a música foi se transformando, o que ficou foi o nome.
That's cool. NPCs even?
Por quê? Porque foi onde fez o caldeirão e misturou todos os... temperou e criou uma nova coisa. Bossa nova, seja do axé, seja da música baiana, seja do funk, que é a atual música eletrônica brasileira, ela também é espelho da cultura desenvolvida no Brasil de mistura. O que é a novidade? É exatamente você misturar essas coisas que foram feitas. Isso é o futuro da música e da raça humana, cada vez mais.
I heard a story before I came to Rio, that when the first Portuguese bishop arrived in Brazil, the natives were so impressed by the word of God that they ate the bishop in order to digest the power of the Catholic Church.
Perguntei ao homem o que era o direito. Ele me respondeu que era a garantia do exercício da possibilidade.
This is a bit where like I don't enjoy smoking anymore, and I think it, like the one or two I have isn't like particularly good for my sinuses. I like that little hit though, dopamine or whatever. But I like overall the idea of a smoke break. Like you sit down, you have a coffee, and you just decompress for like 5 minutes. There doesn't seem to be like nicotine gum doesn't do the same thing. I can't seem to fucking get vapes, man. It just made me cough ridiculously all the time. Could be like because I'd get them off my cousin and he'd have like he like mixes his own fucking. He's got the thing with the tank. He mixed his own flavorings and tobacco, but he'd always like these sweet ones that tasted like cotton candy. Like he lent one to me for like a month, and I used it 3 times I think because try and it tastes like green apples, and I just. That was back when I like smoked. Now I'm like, I take like 3 puffs of a smoke and I'm like, oh fuck, I don't want to. And it's a waste because tobacco is so expensive in Australia. So I'm like, okay, I guess I got to finish this. Man, I'm so full of the cool stories. I think I'm just trying to procrastinate working out how to get to the mechanic and then driving. Things change, man. When I was younger, I would like, I drank drove a couple of times and enjoyed it, and other situations and stuff. Now it's like I worry about hitting people, crashing into things, causing more. And like, not even that rationale. Like, oh, it's not that far. It's like a 20-minute drive to get your car back home. Like that doesn't work on me anymore. I'm like, no, a lot of shit can happen. Like, you can hit somebody like in your street. It doesn't matter the distance or the time you spend driving. It's okay. It's hard to explain. It's less constant pain, but I just feel really fucking fatigued now. It's oh wow, tell you still cool stories. Oh, shut up.
Comia. Só a antropofagia nos une. Socialmente, economicamente, filosoficamente. Da Revolução Francesa ao romantismo, a Revolução Bolchevista, a Revolução Surrealista. Caminhamos.
From a remixer's point of view, Brazil is leading us into the digital age. Here's a country fighting to overcome a legacy of violence, corruption, and inequality through innovation based on universal access to human knowledge and the freedom to build with it, with a balanced view of intellectual property and its relation to the public domain. What could humanity accomplish if we all played the game like Brazil? What diseases could be cured? What voices might be heard? What songs could we sing? Given the chance, this could be what the whole world would look like. Or the world might look more like this. A completely private, incorporated domain. A world where in order to create, you need to beg permission from those who were powerful enough to lock up the ideas from the last century. Is this where we're headed? Well, not if the Mouse Liberation Front has anything to say about it.
Oh, dead.
So what's your favorite number?
77.
Okay. So 001 and 2 sevens, and then anybody you add on has to go on after the sevens. And then after that, then nobody knows. No way to break it.
This is how you got, this is what all the MLF members would do?
Yeah, this we had 10,000 deep. The federales wanted the names of the MLF. They're only numbers, and knows? Yep, there you go.
And that's the movement that's necessary to change this world where girl talk is a crime. That's this world. That's, what's the word? That's fucked.
Thank you guys for coming out. There's going to be a brief intervention on the fucking street right now. You guys all right with that?
So here's the deal. The rules of this game are actually up to you. This is not a world made up of passive consumers anymore. That era is over. This world is made up of collaborators. We can create and share. We can change laws. We can act.
This is remix. This is not piracy. If this is a crime, then we have a whole generation of criminals.
Keep your heart, 3 stacks. Keep your heart. Hey, keep your heart, 3 stacks. Keep your heart. Man, these girls are smart. 3 stacks, these girls are smart. Play your part.
Isso eu só pego, às vezes que eu quero. Mas todo mundo que olha para mim, eu conheço. Tente agora fazer um gesto. Se eu fosse você, faria.
So take this movie, rip it, remix it, and help remake it. Put me in a headlock and pour a beer on my head. This is only the beginning of this movie. Build on the past. That's the future.
So what's the future? Nobody's going to own anything. It's just going to be you and Barack Obama saying the tractor belongs to everybody.
Hi, I'm Congressman Mike Doyle from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I've got girl talk on my iPod.
Flashlights report the lies. Just like light flash before your eyes. Touch right to the soul. Illusions exposed right here on a wheel in the theater of real occurrence. Turn the box with the top hot to the open. Like the soldiers in the Trojan. Unexpected, one direction. Can't go both ways, that's what the folks say. Every note lane in your soundtrack is based around that's how you get down and act. The end of the cinema into the darkness. The usher escorts you to your fortune. Morph it into the final solution. Might be gruesome dependent on your contribution. The vision gets clear and translucent. Witnessing your own video revolution.
Listen, nobody's gone after him so far. I mean, he's
fulfilling his blessings.
Format more than I asked. The big time transmit the past, and it's a glance here on the reel in the theater, a real appearance. I'm in a place where the space makes way for wars like Obi-Wan and Vader. Play for a private screening.
I'll be very angry and possibly litigious if anyone out there takes this interview right here and remix it.
Oh, I'm gonna put the gaming chair. Let's put the gaming chair in. There's like no room at all. All beds under the bed's empty. But...
With some great dance beat. Some great dance beat. Some great dance beat. Some great dance beat. Some great
mix this, I'm fine with it.
I do not give you permission. Just to make sure my point gets across, let me say it more rhythmically. I don't use my words in a song to play in a club. That will make you rhyme, okay? Make you rhyme. 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 Remixing. I'll be very angry and possibly litigious. I was so enraged that I made a video. K-hole, jaw dropping, ear popping fresh. So jaw dropping, ear popping fresh. So jaw dropping, ear popping fresh. So jaw dropping, ear popping fresh. Well, within 24 hours, some DJ jazzy jerks out there and over on the internet with video remix over on the internet video remix over on the internet DJ jazzy jerks copyright infringement. My lawyers sue by the
Nobody's watching this. Why do you care about clicks and on? Oh my fuck, my head is. Yeah. Let's go. Oh my god. How can you decide you are hungry? Like, how do you think I'm gonna make food now? You stupid stomach. Oh yeah, I feel like eating. Don't tell me. I don't know why that guy's getting. He's clearly like he's like uploaded Planet of the Apes and called it. What is it? Oh, Creative Commons, no copyright movies, and the first one is War for the Planet of the Apes. Like, yeah, I don't think that's copyright free, bro. Copyright free action movie. No, I don't think so. Monetized Creative Commons videos. Oh, yes. That noise is a fan that I bought because it was cheap. It turns out it's the cover thing is slightly misaligned, so the blades of the fan hit the cover. It's like chunks out of it where I've bumped it, and it just goes. So if I try and move it to stop it making that noise, it usually just like breaks a chunk off. Upload my YouTube videos. Make money re-uploading our videos to your channel. Okay, what? Finding Creative Commons videos on YouTube. Why? This is all not what I'm looking for. Short-tempered when you got a headache. I'm about to go smash that fan into 5,000 pieces. I kind of don't like that magnify guy. What other videos is there? Let me just put on that other one from Century of Self. So it's called The Century of Self. Part 1, Happiness Machines.
A new theory about human nature was put forward by Sigmund Freud. He had discovered, he said, primitive sexual and aggressive forces hidden deep
He's a
inside the
cocaine
hearts
addict that
of
made
all
most of his
human
studies
beings.
up.
Forces which, if not controlled, led individuals and societies to chaos and destruction. This series is about how those in power have used Freud's theories to try and control the dangerous crowd in an age of mass democracy. At the heart of the story is not just Sigmund Freud, but other members of the Freud family. This episode is about Freud's American nephew, Edward Bernays. Bernays is almost completely unknown today, but his influence on the 20th century was nearly as great as his uncle's. Because Bernays was the first person to take Freud's ideas about human beings and use them to manipulate the masses. He showed American corporations for the first time how they could make people want things they didn't need by linking mass-produced goods to their unconscious desires. Out of this would come a new political idea of how to control the masses. By satisfying people's inner selfish desires, one made them happy and thus docile. It was the start of the all-consuming self, which has come to dominate our world today. Freud's ideas about how the human mind works have now become an accepted part of society, as have psychoanalysts. Every year, the psychotherapist's ball is held in a grand palace in Vienna.
This is the psychotherapy ball. Psychotherapists come, some advanced patients come, or former patients come, and many other people, friends, but also people from the Viennese society.
I gotta go and get my car, man. Fuck. Keep putting it off.
Like to go to a nice, elegant, comfortable ball.
But it was not always so. 100 years ago, Freud's ideas were hated by Viennese society. At that time, Vienna was the centre of a vast empire ruling Central Europe. And to the powerful nobility of the Habsburg court, Freud's ideas were not only embarrassing, but the very idea of examining and analysing one's inner feelings was a threat to their absolute control.
You see, at that time, these people had the power. And of course, you just were not allowed to show your bloody feelings. I mean, you just couldn't. You know, I mean, you couldn't, if you were unhappy, can you imagine, you, for instance, you sit somewhere in the country in a castle, you are deeply unhappy, you are a woman, and you couldn't go to your maid and cry on her shoulders, or you couldn't go into the village and complain, you know, about your feelings. I mean, you couldn't, it was like selling yourself to somebody, you just couldn't, you know, because they had to respect you. Now, of course, Freud, you see, put that thought very much into question, because you see, to examine yourself, you would have to put a lot of other things into question, your society, everything what surrounds you. And that wasn't a good thing at that time. Because your self-created empire, to a certain extent, would have fallen into bits much earlier already.
But what frightened the rulers of the empire even more was Freud's idea that hidden inside all human beings were dangerous instinctual drives. Freud had devised a method he called psychoanalysis. By analyzing dreams and free association, he had unearthed, he said, powerful sexual and aggressive forces, which were the remnants of our animal past. Feelings we repressed because they were too dangerous.
Freud devised a method for exploring the hidden part of the mind, which we nowadays call the unconscious, which is a part that is totally unknown to our consciousness. That there exists a barrier in all our minds which prevents these hidden and unwelcome impulses of the unconscious from emerging. Good night.
In 1914, the Austro-Hungarian Empire led Europe into war. As the horror mounted, Freud saw it as terrible evidence of the truth of his findings. The saddest thing, he wrote, is that this is exactly the way we should have expected people to behave, from our knowledge of psychoanalysis. Governments had unleashed the primitive forces in human beings, and no one seemed to know how to stop them. At that time, Freud's young nephew, Edward Bernays, was working as a press agent in America. His main client was the world-famous opera singer Caruso, who was touring the United States. Bernays' parents had emigrated to America 20 years before, but he kept in touch with his uncle and joined him for holidays in the Alps. But Bernays was now about to return to Europe for a very different reason. On the night that Caruso opened in Toledo, Ohio, America announced it was entering the war against Germany and Austria. As a part of the war effort, the US government set up a Committee on Public Information, and Bernays was employed to promote America's war against the press. The President, Woodrow Wilson, had announced that the United States would fight not to restore the old empires, but to bring democracy to all of Europe. Bernays proved extremely skillful in promoting this idea, both at home and abroad. And at the end of the war, he was asked to accompany the President to the Paris Peace Conference.
Then, to my surprise, they asked me to go with Woodrow Wilson to the peace conference. And at the age of 1926, I was in Paris for the entire time of the peace conference that was held in the suburb of Paris. And we worked to make the world safe for democracy. That was a big slogan.
Wilson's reception in Paris astounded Bernays and the other American propagandists. Their propaganda had portrayed Wilson as a liberator of the people, a man who would create a new world in which the individual would be free. They had made him a hero of the masses. And as he watched the crowd surge around Wilson, Bernays began to wonder whether it would be possible to do the same type of mass persuasion, but in peacetime.
When I came back to the United States, I decided that if you could use propaganda for war, you could certainly use it for peace. And propaganda got to be a bad word because of the Germans using it. So what I did was to try to find some other words. So we found the word Council on Public Relations.
Bernays returned to New York and set up as a public relations counsel in a small office off Broadway. It was the first time the term had ever been used. Since the end of the 19th century, America had become a mass industrial society, with millions clustered together in the cities. Bernays was determined to find a way to manage and alter the way these new crowds thought and felt. To do this, he turned to the writings of his uncle Sigmund. While in Paris, Bernays had sent his uncle a gift of some Havana cigars. In return, Freud had sent him a copy of his general introduction to psychoanalysis. Bernays read it, and the picture of hidden irrational forces inside human beings fascinated him. He wondered whether he might make money by manipulating the unconscious.
What Eddie got from Freud was indeed this idea that there is a lot more going on in human decision-making, not only among individuals, but even more importantly among groups, than this idea that information drives behavior. And so Eddie began to formulate this idea that you had to look at things that would play to people's irrational emotions. And you see, that moved Eddie immediately into a different category from other people in his field and most government officials and managers of the day who thought if you just hit people with all this factual information, they would look at that and say, oh, of course. And Eddie knew that was not the way the world worked.
Bernays set out to experiment with the minds of the popular classes. His most dramatic experiment was to persuade women to smoke. At that time, there was a taboo against women smoking, and one of his early clients, George Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Corporation, asked Bernays to find a way of breaking it.
He said, we're losing half of our market because men have invoked a taboo against women smoking in public. Can you do anything about that? I said, let me think about it. And then I said, have I your permission to see a psychoanalyst to find out what cigarettes mean to women? He said, what'll it cost? So I called up Dr. Brill, A.A. Brill, who was a leading psychoanalyst in New York at that time.
How come you didn't call your uncle? Why didn't you call your uncle?
Because he was in Vienna.
A.A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America, and for a large fee, he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises.
In their mouth.
Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came, and Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
He knew this would be an outcry, and he knew that all of the photographers would be there to capture this moment. And so he was ready with a phrase which was torches of freedom. And so here you have a symbol, women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of freedom. I mean, what's on all American coins? It's liberty. She's holding up the torch. You see, and so all of this is there together. There's emotion, there's memory, there's a rational phrase, even though it's using a lot of emotional elements. It's a phrase that works in a rational sense. All of this is together. And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable with a single symbolic act.
What Bernays had created was the idea that if a woman smoked, it made her more powerful and independent. An idea that still persists today.
Embrace me, my sweet embrace.
It made him realize that it was possible possible to persuade people to behave irrationally if you link products to their emotional desires and feelings. The idea that smoking actually made women freer was completely irrational, but it made them feel more independent. It meant that irrelevant objects could become powerful emotional symbols of how you wanted to be seen by others.
Eddie Bernays saw the way to sell product was not to sell it to your intellect, that you ought to buy an automobile, but that you will feel better about it if you have this automobile. I think he originated that idea, that they weren't just purchasing something, but they were engaging themselves emotionally or personally in the product or service. That it's not, you think you need a new piece of clothing, but you'll feel better with the piece of clothing. That was his contribution in a very real sense. We see it all over the place today, but I think he originated the idea of the emotional connect to a product or service.
What Bernays was doing fascinated America's corporations. They had come out of the war rich and powerful, but they had a growing worry. The system of mass production had flourished during the war, and now millions of goods were pouring off production lines. What they were frightened of was the danger of overproduction, that there would come a point when people had enough goods and would simply stop buying. Up until that point, the majority of products were still sold to the masses on the basis of need. While the rich had long been used to luxury goods, for the millions of working-class Americans, most products were still advertised as necessities. Goods like shoes, stockings, even cars were promoted in functional terms for their durability. The aim of the advertisements was simply to show people the product's practical virtues, nothing more. What the corporations realized they had to do was transform the way the majority of Americans thought about products. One leading Wall Street banker, Paul Mazur of Lehman Brothers, was clear about what was necessary.
It was uploaded 8 years ago. It's only got 2.5
He wrote, from a
million
needs
views.
to a desires culture.
Ridiculous.
People must be trained to desire, to want new things.
I think it was on BBC originally, though.
Entirely consumed. We must shape a new mentality in America. Man's desires must overshadow his needs.
Prior to that time, there was no American consumer. There was the American worker, and there was the American owner, and they manufactured and they saved and they ate what they had to when the people shopped for what they needed. And while the very rich may have bought things they didn't need, most people did not. And Mazur envisioned a break with that, where you would have things that you didn't actually need, but you wanted, as opposed to needed.
And the man who would be at the center of changing that mentality for the corporations was Edward Bernays.
Oh, it is him.
Bernays really is the guy within the United States more than anybody else who sort of brings to the table psychological theory.
Yes, I haven't used the FM radio app on the... You can read your fucking notifications on your phone and you're like... What do you think I'm just going to use that? It's like, you haven't used the FM radio app for a very long time. Yes, fuck off.
Is ready for Sigmund Freud. I mean, they are ready for understanding what motivates the
very short-tempered. I feel like texting my parents and saying, look, tell me what you're fucking going to nag me about because I'm going to scream if you try and... I've run out of all of my cool.
Beginning in the early 20s,
not cool as in I'm cool, cool as in I'm fucking...
chains of department stores across America. They were to be the outlets for the mass-produced goods, and Bernays' job was to produce the new type of customer. Bernays began to create many of the techniques of mass consumer persuasion that we now live with. He was employed by William Randolph Hearst to promote his new women's magazines, and Bernays glamorized them by placing articles and advertisements that linked products made by others of his clients.
That's why I find
to
it
famous
weird when
film
like
stars Clara Bow.
women sort of say, oh, Cosmo really shaped
Really
shaped what it means to be a woman, all this sort of shit. You realise it was manipulation from the start.
Film's premieres with clothes and jewellery from other firms he represented. He was, he claimed, the first person to tell car companies they could sell cars as symbols of male sexuality. He employed psychologists to issue reports that said products were good for you, and then pretended they were independent studies. He organised fashion shows in the department stores and paid celebrities to repeat the new and essential message. You bought things not just for need, but to express your inner sense of yourself to others.
There's a psychology of dress. Have you ever thought about it? How it can express your character? You all have interesting characters.
This is literally 100 years ago, 1920s, man.
I wonder why you all
Been
want
going
to
on that long.
dress always the same, with the same hats and the same coats. I'm sure all of you are interesting and have wonderful things about
You guys didn't pick up that there was a fucking market crash in the 20s? What? Just after you said all this shit?
so much the same. And that's why I'm talking to you about the psychology of dress. Try and express yourselves better in your dress. Bring out certain things that you think are hidden. I wonder if you've thought of this angle of your personality.
I'd like to ask you some questions. Why do you like short skirts?
Oh, because there's more to see.
More to see, eh? What good does that do you?
It makes you more attractive.
Does?
The poor girl surrounded by these douchey guys.
In 1927,
Alright, I'm gonna go force myself to go pick up my car now. Alright. Yeah, let's have one last scan of here. Look, it's worse than it was. It slightly got better for a day or two, and then it's much more worse. Hopefully I somehow find a second or third wind or whatever and just plow on through this afternoon. I like that documentary, so I'm gonna like brainwash myself with that and say I haven't watched it, I swear to God, for like since 2016. I remember liking it back then. I'm like, oh, I'll watch that again. This way, whenever like the brain bit, it's like, oh, I need stimulation that makes me talk or whatever. I'll listen to that while I tackle this shit. A lot of this stuff, I could put stuff under the bed and then I can do that thing where I said I was going to take the door off that. A lot of this shit I can just take straight to my farm, my property. Cause, it's annoying though, like, stuff in these bags is supposed to be for artworks, but it's just junk at the moment. But then if I move it there, I don't have a studio set up there, so it's going to sit there and rot. And, boy, it would be good if you had got your shit together, you know, about 20 years ago. Okay. I really don't want to do this. I don't want to do anything. But I didn't do anything yesterday, and now I feel shitty about that, so you're just going to suffer.
Oh, poor white boy.
There's so many things bad in the world, and here you are bitching about a 2-day migraine. Alright, I think I can see well enough to drive, hopefully. I'll just drive slowly and carefully. What do you reckon? Oh, shit. Where's those glasses? Okay, try and work at this bus. Alright, thank you. What did I do? Again, some of this stuff. Like, this is toilet paper. I saved this because somebody left it behind in my store during fucking pandemic when toilet paper was a rare commodity. This is some of the worst toilet paper ever. They don't even use this in public toilets. It's that bad. But at the time toilet paper was that hard to get, we didn't throw it out. Like, we kept it in case the person came back. Like, that's how bizarre things were during the pandemic. So I kept this as a sort of reminder that, like, this is, I don't want this. It's not, there's no value to this at all. I wouldn't even use it as toilet paper. Like, I might blow my nose on it if I get desperate. But I didn't even open it. But the fact is, this was a very valuable thing at one stage. So the value of things can change, like, based on the situation, and you imbue it with different... No, nobody cares about this shit. This is the annoying thing with, like like, I don't want to be an artist. They're all a bunch of wankers. They're either wankers or they're geniuses, and you're... Yeah, I guess you're a wanker. So. Alright, thank you. I love you. Goodbye. Yeah, stop.